Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's podcast number 17. I'm Gary, and joining me for the first time, I have Hannah and Amanda.
Hello.
Hannah, of course, you might recognise from the Lost Boys review we done, and Near Dark, Byzantium.
I am aka Vampire Girl, I think. I've been dubbed
I think so, and we brought you on along with you, Amanda, because I think you two are my experts when it comes to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Absolutely.
And that will be the theme of this podcast in part 2. And in part 3, Ian will be back and we'll be answering your questions. And of course, in the first part, we're just going to catch up recent film and television that we've been watching, and then some film news before we get into the main theme of the podcast. So, first thing that I wanted to bring up, and it was something I mentioned in the 24-hour live stream that I did with Ian, was The Terror, season 1 on AMC, being produced by Ridley Scott. And I started watching The Terror the same day I rewatched Alien Covenant. And when I saw Ridley Scott's name come up on the screen, I almost just stopped. I was like, no. I was like, but you know what? Ridley Scott's actually really talented and really good at bringing things to life. He's not directing this. He's not editing or writing for it. He's just producing it. And the show looks fantastic.
He's good at what it looks, and even though I haven't seen it, I've read the book, and the landscapes and everything in it. If it's half as good as it sounds in the book, you should.
I've not read the book, but I've seen documentaries on the real events of it's the Royal Navy's Polar Express ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, venturing into uncharted territory to seek the Northwest Passage. The ships get stuck in ice, and they're frozen and isolated, and they've got to survive the harsh weather. They're there for years, essentially trapped in the ice, before the ships start to disintegrate on being capsized. But at the same time, they're also being hunted by, I want to say, a polar bear. But in this adaptation, it is more like a mystical creature, and there is an episode in The Terror which just made me think of Alien. It captured that tense, isolated fear, because this creature is mauling these people to death in vicious, brutal and horrible ways. And it's really well acted.
I think in the book as well, there's a lot about culture clash.
Yes,
because it's the links with the locals that they go all colonial over, really. And, you guys face it, marched all over them. But, but there is the links with their culture and their mythology as well. So I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to see it once I heard it had been announced.
Of course, it's only going to be one season, and then one and done. So maybe wait until it's all done, and then it's definitely binge worthy. You could easily sit through it.
I think I'm going to wait, and then I just binge watch the whole thing because it looks that good.
There was, I would say, one episode in the first 5 that I watched that did drag a little bit, and it was because it kept doing flashbacks to before they set off, and I was just like, I just want to get back to the ship, goddamn flashbacks.
Get on with it.
Lost.
Oh God, yeah.
Got a lot to answer for that series, I tell you.
I am actually a fan of Lost, even though I'm allowed to dig it from fan, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's how it works.
Other show that I caught up with, I took a gamble with this one. It's called Future Man, and I'd heard nothing about it, and I was like, I'll give it a go. And it's sort of bizarro comedy, kind of mixed with, it's like a sex comedy comic book adaptation.
This sounds interesting.
The main character's called Josh Fudderman, and he's a janitor by day,
Gigolo,
and a gamer by night. And he ends up being recruited by mysterious visitors that travel through time in order to prevent the extinction of humanity.
This rings a bell. I think I read about it in SFX, actually.
The main character comes home and he starts masturbating over a poster of a girl from a video game. And that is where the time travellers appear in his room the moment he ejaculates all over the hard-nosed commando guy.
Awkward.
So it's tastefully done. It's done very tastefully then.
Yes. So that's the sort of humour that you're getting into, okay?
Kind of dark, but comedy. I like that.
So they end up travelling through time with this guy who's, really sort of an everyday Joe who kind of has elements, or uses his knowledge, his gamer knowledge to save the day.
Have you seen the trailers for Happy?
I have, yes. Now
that looks bloody fantastic.
Yes. I like these bizarro kind of comedies.
Yeah.
Do you remember, I think was it Wilfred? The boy and his dog?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, and that was remade with like the same person again. And it's like, okay.
It didn't need to be, but more of the same. And so the other TV show that I have been watching is Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3.
Oh, dear God, I love
There's
that show.
only 2 episodes to go at the moment. By the time this podcast goes up, it would have been done. But I have really bad news. If you're hearing it from me, you know, Ash vs. Evil Dead has been cancelled. It's just been cancelled. I found out about it via Twitter when Bruce Campbell himself tweeted, it's been a hell of a ride. It's been cancelled by Stars. Ash has left the building.
That man is a god, though.
He said, Ash vs. Evil Dead has been the ride of a lifetime. Ash Williams was the role of a lifetime. I will always be grateful to Stars, Sam Raimi, Rob Tapper, and our tireless fans for the opportunity to revisit the franchise that launched our careers. Thank you. So, yeah, it's really sad.
I'm going to have to break this the other half now because I don't think he knows. This is
dear.
Be
yeah. A lot of
tough.
people are cancelling their subscriptions to Stars. You know,
in protest.
In protest, yeah. A lot of people actually only signed up to Stars for the show. So now that the show's going, cancel subscription.
I thought it was doing really well because I really enjoyed watching it. And me and the other half have been watching it quite a lot, and it's like he is an amazing character. It's an amazing series. I have no idea why it's been cancelled. It's Firefly Mark 2.
A ratings problem where it just wasn't being watched by that many people. But I mean, it does only fit that half-hour time slot.
Well, it's even spawned others. I mean, Stan vs. Evil. That would have happened without Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, they've kind of asking Bruce Campbell what's the chances of coming back and making another film, or, you know, what would happen if Netflix picked up the show? Would you continue it? And he pretty much has said that he's done playing the character of Ash now.
Really?
Yeah. He said this at the Film Institute, the Irish Film Institute. I have lavender on my property. I'm going to go smoke weed and hang out.
He is the coolest guy ever. He's just so cool.
But I reckon his arm could be twisted, you know?
I swear there were still rumours of an Evil Dead 3 at some point.
Well, yeah, but I think that became what is this TV series. And they said that they've ended this series the way that it is ended. So no chance of it. Well, there's, you know, you'd have to start a new story to go in the next direction. So it does conclude, which should at least be satisfying. But it's always upsetting, you know. I was sat here earlier and I was, you know, watching Buffy, and I was just found out the news about Ash being cancelled, and I had the exact same empty stomach feeling of like, wow, I've just lost a friend. You know,
it does feel like that.
It
you
really
get to know
does.
the characters so well inside out, and then
especially with great shows.
Yeah.
I
always get a little bit sad at the end of a series.
Firefly, rest in peace.
Oh,
yes.
You see, that one never even made it to the series, and still
half a series.
Even
the
that
lives.
the limited amount of episodes and the characters so good in it that even then it's the same thing. Series that have gone on for 3-4 seasons. Yeah. You don't get to know them as well.
No. See, I kind of, just to bring up Battlestar Galactica again, that one, when that one ended, you know, it was the writer's decision to end it. So they had the whole writer's break, you know, with the strike and everything, to actually polish and get the story to where they wanted it to go to. It hurts more, like Angel, when it is just axed at a horrible, crucial moment.
That was... I can't even talk about that.
That ending was genius, really, because...
It was genius for what they did.
Brilliant final episode.
It was how the writers and the producers and the makers of the show felt at the end of that episode.
Although the comic books carried it on very well.
Yes,
I hated that ending. Just a different point of view, I absolutely despised it because I felt it was...
Betrayal,
and it was just cut off, and you could almost feel like the writers going, right, fuck you, we're ending this here, and us all going, what just happened? But yeah, it's I liked Angel as well. Just for the record.
And so the next TV show that I've been watching is The Walking Dead Series 7, which at this point has ended, and Fear the Walking Dead will probably be on like episode 4 by the time the podcast goes out. So are you both fans of the show? Have you watched all of season 7?
I have not watched all of season 7 because I kind of got lost very much with the whole downer, and it was just really spiralling downwards, and I was like, really?
See, I've spoken to a lot of Walking Dead fans, and they're like, yeah, I dropped off season 2 with the farm, and other people, I dropped off season 3 at the prison. I dropped off at Alexandria. I dropped off when they fake killed Glenn.
Quitters!
And so And now you're telling me you've just dropped off on this season. It's like...
It's just... There's only so far you can go. Fear the Walking Dead I've seen as well, but...
I actually rate that higher than The Walking Dead.
That
I
Morgan
really like
is
it.
going to come over to
Yes,
Fear the Walking
yeah,
Dead. So
I had that spoiler land as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. I haven't got to the very end of Walking Dead yet, just because I haven't had time recently, but I plan on watching all of it. But any spoilers I'm absolutely fine with, so... Yeah,
okay, all I'll say is that they have ended All Out War, which was a pretty big chunk of the graphic novel or the comic book series. And they, in the mid-season, they killed off a very central character to the show. Which I won't go into again now, which the back half of the season dealt with the repercussions of said character being killed on the show, including the ending the all-out war, which I was quite satisfied with the episode as a whole. I would have been overly satisfied with the whole season if there wasn't just 2 sequences in previous episodes that really pissed me off with sloppy writing. Now, these characters have been going through the zombie apocalypse for how long? If we go by our time, 7 years at least. There is a sequence where a bunch of characters are unknowingly infected. So they're all in the hospital, they're all ill. Other people have taken wounds, they're feeling ill. Okay. All of the survivors are in one building. About 15 of them turn into zombies in the night and get up and eat all the other people. A zombie from the top of the hilltop wanders out of the balcony and falls all the way down the stairs into a room full of sleeping people and then proceeds to eat one of them.
That's a rookie
without
error.
Any of them waking up.
Nobody wakes up.
I was watching the screen screaming. I was like, these people are have survived a zombie apocalypse. The slightest noise of somebody falling down the stairs would wake them up in a panic, but they sleep right through it.
In one season, they all had to beware of locking themselves in at night in case somebody turned during the night through a heart attack or something, and suddenly that happens.
And so, other than killing off like a bunch of C-list characters in that one episode, it just grated. I just had a hard time watching the rest of it.
That's lazy.
The stupidity of it.
That's not what you'd expect from a show of that calibre.
Must admit, I've not got into Fear the Walking Dead. I've watched the first season. I haven't gone past that yet.
Okay, now that was my problem because I thought season 1 sucked.
But
really badly.
Well, season 1, I must admit, after about the first 2 episodes, pretty much, and that whole time jump was a bit shitty.
That's the thing. What killed it for me. That time jump.
I tell you what, it did do well was showing it as it broke out and the reason, and everybody passing it off.
That was
and
brilliant.
They would see a drunk, and it looked like, is that a drunk man? Is that a homeless man? Is that a druggie or whatever? And
rationalising everything.
Totally, and that was really good to see, and because you never saw that with Walking Dead.
But they still skipped then, didn't they?
Yeah,
it was like,
and then
now the apocalypse is everywhere. That was the promise of the show.
Yeah.
But what I do like about the show now is that the family unit is a lot stronger in Fear the Walking Dead than it is in The Walking Dead.
Yes.
The characters all end up branching out and meeting at different survivors and then coming back again. They did kill off family members as well, and when they killed off my favourite character in Fear the Walking Dead, I didn't think I'd keep watching, but the show actually got better when they killed off my favourite character, so that is telling of how good the show has actually become.
That is good.
So I have to pick it up at season 2. I must admit,
Definitely.
that guy that was introduced, the mysterious guy that he runs into at the detention centre, he looked very interesting.
He is a really good character.
And then he got them to that house shady. On the coast in the shade. That was like,
the one with the boat. Yeah.
With promise.
Yes. So I definitely recommend Fear the Walking Dead as well. Carol in The Walking Dead is still great. She's been my favourite character.
Bloody love Carol.
For a long time. Yes, hell yes.
She rules.
Her development from season 1 through till now has just been incredible.
She's one of the few last standing from original series.
She is. She's absolutely epic.
And speaking of Morgan going into Fear the Walking Dead, he's actually one of my least favourite characters of The Walking Dead, and so I'm hoping that shifting him over into a show that I actually really like, they do something with him, because otherwise I'm going to be like, I've got Walking Dead's leftovers. I don't know what to do with this character, so they put him over here.
I found him really interesting, especially when he was going through that whole phase about not wanting to kill people.
He's still in that phase. That's the thing that's doing my head in.
He had like this complete breakdown, didn't he? Where he was like trying to then kill lots of people, and I don't really know what happened. I need to go back.
He decided not to kill people, and now he's stuck in the middle because certain people have killed people because he didn't stop it, and so now he wants to kill everyone again. And in the last episode, he is yet again told, use the non-pointy end for humans.
The non-pointy.
The flashback episode was good. You know the one where he runs into that guy in the woods?
Yes.
I in the cell. Yeah. That was his best time, definitely.
I actually, Jeff, who was a familiar on Off the Shelf, that was the episode he tuned out of the show. There was that episode that killed it for him because of the martial arts that he's taught in that episode is like a phony martial art. It's not real. It's just and wouldn't be used in that way. And so he was just like, no.
Because of course the zombie apocalypse, the rest
exactly.
of it is
I was
so
like, but you could deal with the zombie apocalypse, but this bit of kung fu is just that ruined it for you. So fair enough. But lots of people have had lots of different jumping off points for Walking Dead. It's crazy.
When Half refuses to watch it. He's downstairs at the moment. He refuses to watch it because he just doesn't find it like a viable thing at all right from the outset. And he thought he's read the comics, and he said the comics were so much better that he won't watch the TV series.
I love them both separately, so for me, The Walking Dead is being a big zombie fan of the George Romero series and lots of zombie media. Having a show that's like the book, not supposed to end, or it's at least supposed to end once the apocalypse is over. And then what happens after that? It's the series was started because zombie movies end, and the characters are always still in the zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
So
what you need to do is skip forward to Mara Grant. Have you read the zombie trilogy by Mara Grant?
No.
The zombie apocalypse has finished about 20 years previously.
Okay.
But there are still zombies around. So you could easily have Walking Dead till it finishes, and then they need to make Mara Grant's zombie trilogy.
Yeah. That'd be really
because
cool.
that is a fantastic trilogy.
I like the movie Fido, because that picks up after a zombie apocalypse where they have them as domesticated slaves.
So sweet.
Love that Billy Connolly.
Yeah. So another film that I caught up with, I remember Andy on the podcast a couple of episodes ago mentioned seeing it, Mom and Dad. Now this is Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair.
I've not heard of this one.
Okay, it was written and directed by Brian Taylor, who wrote and directed Crank, Crank 2, Gamer. And so these are off the wall.
You know what you're getting
exactly.
there,
So by just listing those, you should know what Mom and Dad is. They basically got hold of Nicolas Cage, I think, after doing the what's he called, the Knight Rider films, Ghost Rider. Sorry, the Ghost Rider films. And so they were like, what do we do with Nicolas Cage? Let's write something for him instead of trying to put him in something.
Yeah.
And so the idea behind it is that Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair's two children, an older daughter and a younger boy, have got to survive 24 hours where the entire population is hit with a mass hysteria where they try to murder their children.
Yeah.
Oh!
And it is violent and gory and over the top and insane. And Nicolas Cage, with a role that was actually written for him, doing and one of his best performances today. If you're a fan of Nicolas Cage and the stupidity and his zany faces, you're going to love this film.
I need to watch this film.
It's almost like a companion piece to. It's a few years ago now, but it's set in the.
Not
the Crazies. It's the one where it's the country and the kids turn murderous and try to kill their parents. It's in the middle of the countryside. There's snow everywhere and everything, and they're on this. Families are together. And the kids turn murderous. But obviously the parents don't want to kill them, but the kids are trying to kill them. And now you've got the...
It's a frightening concept as well.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple of sequences in Mom and Dad where you have all the children coming out of the school because they hear ambulances going by, fire engines, and then all of their parents are all lined up at the gates. There's police and security there trying to keep the parents out who are climbing over the walls with hammers and screwdrivers, bludgeoning and murdering their kids.
God.
And... about 40 minutes into the film, this is set up earlier, Selma Blair's sister's going into labour at the beginning of the film.
Oh, that's going to end
The film goes to the hospital where she gives birth and tries to kill her newborn baby whilst everyone else is still trying to figure out what's going on. It's one of those films where you're biting on your fingers like with trepidation as to how this is actually going to play out on film. And... It's fantastic, and it's also very well emotionally acted. And also, there's a sequence when Nicolas Cage's parents turn up at the house to kill him whilst he's trying to kill his children, and it gets kind of crazy, but it's a roller coaster ride. It's a fantastic film. I mean, really fun.
Every parent has probably said jokingly, I'm going to kill him.
Yes.
And then this sounds like a bit of a guilty pleasure. What would happen?
Yes, yeah.
This is what you show your kids if they don't behave.
Yes, yeah.
This will happen to you.
The parents do say that, before everything kicks off, and just be like, I'd kill you, if you keep doing that again, if you leave your toys out. And so the next thing that I want to bring up, which also actually has a tie-in to Buffy, I've been watching Supernatural, as I've mentioned it in quite a few podcasts. Right now, I'm up to Supernatural Season 13, Episode 16. And the latest episode that I watched is, without a doubt, one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen. Literally within the top 10 of any episode of any TV show ever.
Because you've seen a lot of TV series.
And it's called Scooby Natural. And spoilers for if you're a Supernatural fan, Sam and Dean and Castiel end up with a possessed television. Dean is watching an episode of Scooby-Doo when they all get teleported inside the television into an actual episode of Scooby-Doo that has all been animated in the style of 1960s Scooby-Doo.
That sounds pretty awesome.
They got Frank Welker back to play Fred, who also voices Scooby-Doo and has done since the 1960s, which is fantastic. They also got, what's he called? Is it Frank Willard? Who voiced him recently and also played Shaggy in the films as well. To play the voice as well. And it is fantastic. It upholds Supernatural and Scooby-Doo at the same time.
Which is difficult.
But it is difficult. Like so, that they joke or they mention that in Scooby-Doo there was no Supernatural. It was always a landlord or a bank manager in a ghost suit.
It was tearing that mask off.
Even though Scooby-Doo of the latest generation actually does deal with supernatural events, originally it didn't.
It was just the local dustbin man or
there was a bit in the episode where I jumped out of my seat with excitement. It's kind of stupid, but I loved it, where they're running from doors, where the monster's chasing them and they're running through doors and they're chasing each other
scene,
and it swaps around. But Scrappy-Doo runs through the door and into the other door for like 3 seconds. He was there in the background. I was just
Scrappy-Doo!
The most annoying character ever, but I was happy because it was done right. But they also say the line in the episode, "We saved the world," a lot. And I was just like, that was Buffy! That was Buffy! And awesome. Of course there was, who was it? It's, I've forgotten the actress's name, who did appear in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in season 7, and she was Felicia Day, who was also a series regular in Supernatural until they killed her off.
She went to the world of Oz at one point.
True, yes,
random, wasn't it? Yeah. But she was brilliant, the way they did her, especially with all her like RPG stuff.
Yes,
and things.
Yeah, they kept her sort of nerdy actual persona and brought it into Supernatural. Yeah. So tell me, I think that both of you have seen Ready Player One. Now I've tried to get to the cinema to see it, but time has escaped me. So please tell me, should I actually make time and force things apart to go?
You should go now and see it.
Walk out of the podcast.
And come back
out. Yeah, we'll take over. It's fine.
We'll take over. Now. You go and see it because it is it's a delight of 80s nostalgia. I think they did the book brilliant justice in the film, and
so I've not read the book either. So give me a quick synopsis of what it's actually about.
Well, it's set in a far future after various financial collapses. And it's your classic, lad from the poor side of the tracks.
The ghetto.
But basically everyone escapes to this virtual reality. And they have their own personas there and live out a lot of their lives there. And there's the guy who created the entire thing. When he died, had left these Easter eggs, literally calling it an Easter egg. And there were 3 keys, and people have been searching for them forever. They have their own name, and they grunters because they're egg hunters. And they're up against a big corporation who employ hundreds of people to professionally search for it.
Yes,
because whoever gets the Easter egg will gain control of the Oasis. So of course you've got big corporations. corporation versus...
That's the virtual world,
okay. Yeah. And you've got the big corporation who wants to make it commercial. They're looking... There's at one point, he's viewing how many adverts they can get without setting off a seizure. Yep. He's actually calculating the adverts they can put on the screen, which is quite funny.
It's brilliant.
And he joins forces with his friends that he knows only from the virtual world, but he gets to know in the real world to actually... They actually come across and get close to the keys, and it really goes into earnest, and it's just every kind of 80s icon nostalgia you can think of, because the guy who created the Oasis was very big into 80s culture.
So now everyone is.
So it's coded into everything. Yeah. And these people searching for the eggs because they become students, and not students, scholars of him. Scholars of him. And so they learn all the 80s pop culture as well.
I think they unleash the secrets to finding the keys. So there's literally a museum with all like snippets from his memories you can go in and view, and people are doing that. They stopped doing that a while ago, most people, but this small group of people have gone, this is the key to finding out, to getting inside his head, and that gives them their first clue to finding the first key.
Awesome.
I mean, the film itself, visually, when I heard it was being made into a film, I was like, how you fit that into a film, but visually they've done really, really well. I heard that actually when the guy who was writing it heard that he was actually Steven Spielberg was coming on board, Steven Spielberg tried to cut some of the influences that related to himself, because so much of it was Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
Right.
But there's a lot of E.T. references, I think.
And I was saying, it's like, I'm going to have to get it on Blu-ray and just watch it at least about 4 or 5 times, because the battle scenes, you're just like, whoa. You can't take every reference in at once, because in terms of gaming and 80s, it's just...
The soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. If you were someone that's born in the 80s, or you like 80s culture, you need this soundtrack.
Does it have a Thor Ragnarok feel to the soundtrack?
There was a little bit of that in there, but there's Twisted Sister in there.
Awesome.
Which I nearly cheered in the cinema, because I'm a huge fan of Twisted Sister. But if you like 80s music, I mean, it just the way they've cut the film with the songs, it works on so many levels. And like Amanda said, there's just so much going on. I'm gonna have to watch it so many times to get all the references.
Cool.
It's an absolute visual delight, but it's kind of overload as well at the same time.
Okay,
so much
that's the one thing I am worried about, is the overload materials, because right now we do seem to be in like a big nostalgia wave for the 80s with Stranger Things sort of really kickstarting that off. And
definitely.
Then It recently, it's the most successful film of like 2017, or one of, and especially with that being set in the 80s.
Yep.
And now Ready Player One hitting a lot of 80s nostalgia.
There is
I did watch an interesting video on it a couple of weeks ago, where as a society we do always have the nostalgia for sort of a certain time period, and so in the future there will be the nostalgia for the 10s and the 20s.
Really? There'll be
nostalgia.
It's going to be weird. Yeah, the selfie generation.
There will be nostalgia for the Trump era at some point.
There's going to be. They'll flash back to that time period, and it'll be weird.
Eyebrows and selfies and oh god, it's going to be interesting.
Yes, yeah. So, are you caught up with anything else film-wise?
Film-wise, oh my gosh, recently I can't seem to think of what's come out recently now. I think the last one we saw was Ready Player One. I saw the Jumanji one quite recently. That was
over the Christmas. That actually did really well as well, and it's getting a sequel.
And I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I was really dubious because, it's the Rock's in it. I like The Rock, but any remake of something with Robin Williams in it is going to be...
Without Robin Williams.
Big shoes to fill, massively. But I love the fact that they referenced the first film and the second film a couple of times, and everyone kind of, seeing each other nodding, going, yep, that's Alan, that's the first guy that went there. And they did the film really good justice, and I like the fact they brought out kind of the girl power side of the nice quiet girl that was there who you didn't think much of, and she ended up being one of the main characters, which was brilliant. So I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
That was fab.
I've been on started a bit of a Korean kick recently.
Okay.
So I was watching over the holidays. I watched Good, the Bad, the Weird.
Okay.
Which was weird, but that was trippy. And then the last week I watched The Villainess, which was fucking brilliant.
I've not heard of The Villainess.
You talk about crank. This opening sequence, right, outdoes Crank and the corridor sequence in
Old Boy?
No, not in Old Boy. In what do you call it? On the TV series, Defenders, not the Defender.
Oh, Punisher.
No, not Punisher, the first one. The really famous corridor scene.
Oh.
You say corridor scene, now I immediately go to The Shining. That's weird.
Anyway, it's got the most amazing opening 5 minutes. Even if you never watch the rest of the film, if you can find on a YouTube somewhere, the first 5 minutes of Villainess, it is just blows you out of the water. It's got shades of Nikita, and just. She is amazing in it.
Okay.
And it's not afraid to really go for it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And like I said, she was fantastic. And so I've started branching out towards. I'd already seen Oldboy years ago, which was very traumatic. I was very traumatised after watching Oldboy. That traumatised me. And then the next one is I don't know. I've got a couple on my list that I'm going to go to next. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying those.
I think I'm not sure if this is a Korean film or not, but I've only quite recently seen Train to Busan.
It's on my watch list.
Oh God,
not sucks. That's brilliant. I don't mean so.
Being a huge zombie fan, you need to see this film.
Yeah, it's been on my list for 4 months now. I just haven't got to it.
I absolutely, I'm a huge zombie fan, as well as vampires, but huge zombie fan, and it absolutely blew me away, that film.
Have you seen Soul Station?
On a bus,
no, I haven't.
I saw Soul Station. They're both on streaming, so I watched Train to Busan first, and then I watched Soul Station, which is like an animated prequel to the breakout of the zombie epidemic for Train to Busan.
Awesome.
And it's got. I mean, the characters in it's quite heartbreaking, some of the endings to some of the characters in it, but it works really well for it.
That sounds brilliant. And if you watch Train to Busan, you will be chewing your own fingers off because the tension in that film is just, I think it's unparalleled.
Awesome,
It's absolutely brilliant. And the way that people
I've heard some people claim that it has been overrated recently because it did get quite a big push in the media.
See, I don't think it's overrated. I think it was a really brilliant piece of cinematography. It was great the way it was done, the way the tension was built, the sheer panic you feel when watching it.
Yeah.
I remember gripping Weatherhouse's knee and him doing the same thing.
The tension. That's
tension.
Awesome.
Yeah. Watch it. It's great.
Yeah.
I think when I watched it as well, I had a flashback to completely not related, but on a train, Snowpiercer.
Yes, I really like Snowpiercer. That's being adapted into a TV series now.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit worrying, but I did like Snowpiercer.
The look. Snowpiercer just looked fantastic, but Train to Busan, I mean, obviously Ian would hate it because the zombies are fast. Let's face it.
They're not zombies, they're
not real
infected.
zombies because they're fast. But, so he'll hate that bit.
Yeah.
Ian hates that bit because Ian can't run very fast because Ian never does any exercise.
No, he's fine if zombies are sprinting so long as people don't call them zombies.
Yes, okay. Let's not get into that argument with him because he will.
They're calling them a Korean word for zombies, so does that count?
That does count, so they're wrong. They're dead wrong.
They're dead wrong. Nice.
Alright, so unfortunately we're going to move into the film news, and I say unfortunately because we've got a couple of actors and a couple of people that passed away in the last month, and always like to give them a mention on the podcast. The first one we're going to mention is Arlie Ermey. Who passed away at the age of 74. He's most well known as the staff sergeant or the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket.
A jelly donut! Yeah. Great guy.
He also was Sarge in the 3 Toy Story movies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Space Above and Beyond, which was one of my sort of cherished cancelled sci-fi shows. He was the drill instructor for that.
I forgot he was in that.
He was also an undead ghost drill instructor in The Frighteners.
Oh my gosh,
Frighteners! Of course, I haven't seen that one in years. I'm going to have to rewatch Frighteners.
Yeah.
He's appeared in so many films. He's been sort of the military advisor on so many film projects. The man himself was known as a bit of a hellraiser in his youth. He got arrested multiple times and then faced either jail or the Marine Corps. And obviously he chose the Marine Corps. He served for 11 years. He did 14 months in the Vietnam War. He also did 2 wars in Okinawa.
Wow.
So he faced quite a bit. And when he retired from the military, he studied criminology and then drama, which eventually led him into an acting career, which is incredible. So he's had an incredible life, incredible story, and unforgettable moments in film. So it's sad to see him go. Ian dropped this one on me the last minute, so I don't have too much information about this one. But a famous actor passed away at the age of 82, and that was Bruno Sammartino. He's a wrestler who was, I think, most famous in the early 60s.
Yes.
In the WWF or maybe the WCW.
Yeah, massive
he was
guy.
He was absolutely massive. I've seen pictures of the guy. But yeah, he was a friendly giant.
Yes.
And so the wrestling community is mourning the loss of Bruno.
Oh.
I, on the other hand, am also mourning the loss of famous director Milos Forman, who's passed away at the age of 86. And he directed two of my favourite films of all time. And that was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975 and Man on the Moon in 1999 with Jim Carrey.
Yes, yeah.
He also directed Amadeus in 1984. He also did The People vs. Larry Flint in 1996. He won 2 Oscars as Best Director and had multiple nominations, and almost every one of his films received more than 5 Oscar nominations, and often or not, those actors would win Best Actor or Best Screenplay or Best Music or something. So he was a well-renowned filmmaker, made incredible films. Didn't make many films, but the films that he did make...
top-notch.
Top-notch and still stand up today.
Yes.
So
very
yes,
sad,
very sad. So moving on from the sad news to what could actually be a disaster.
Oh God.
We know that the Halloween movie is coming out this year.
Yes.
The poster has just materialised on the internet. And Coming Soon has appeared at the bottom, and I think we all know it's coming out Halloween this October, right? Like, there's no real guessing when it's coming out.
When's the optimum time to release a Halloween film? Could
December,
it be?
yes.
Yeah.
Why mess with something so iconic?
Now,
I really don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the mask that is literally the poster, and it is the Michael Myers mask, but it looks like it's aged 40 years. That's
one way. That's one way to pay homage, isn't it? Really?
Now, apparently, John Carpenter was enthralled with the script enough so for him to come on board as sort of a producer and advisor.
Because he's a big name in himself. John
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
humongous.
the fact that Danny McBride, who was responsible for this movie, has managed to convince John Carpenter. Either John Carpenter has gone senile now.
Oh.
And he's just like, yes, it's great.
Look at some of those later films. That's not really. But,
it's either going to be...
Sorry, Ian. Bad man.
Ghost of Mars. I'm just telling you, Ghost of Mars.
Ghost of Mars. That's funny because we're going to mention that later on. And so yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the new Halloween film. It's ignoring all of the Halloween movies past the second one, so it's literally a continuation or sequel to Halloween, in of itself also just being called Halloween.
It's going to upset a lot of people, isn't it? I can tell
it
already.
It already is. I mean, anyone who is a fan of a franchise is going to get upset. I think the only fan base that's not really upset is probably the Child's Play horror franchise. At least that still has some integrity.
Oh, God.
Scraping the barrel, really, isn't it?
Right, we'll pray for you, Halloween. Well, hopefully it's going to be brilliant.
The same thing happened with Rob Zombie, though. It was when he went into it, they're exactly the same kind of outcry.
Yes,
and we have a bit of a controversy, Tom and I, because he actually likes... he prefers
the Rob Zombie Halloween.
The Rob Zombie Halloween, and I wanted to hit him when he said that.
This is that awkward moment when you're sat in between two people and you actually prefer the Rob Zombie one.
Oh no! How could you?
But I think it's because I haven't properly watched the originals yet.
It was one
I hear
of the
this
first...
all too often.
I will do it.
It was the first horror film I ever saw, and
Cool.
my mate and I would her parents were out, so we'd got a copy of it on VHS, and we were in the house and we were like, yeah, we can watch this. We were obviously not old enough to watch it, but we were like, we can do this. And then I remember afterwards, after we switched it off, we had to search the entire house from top to bottom just to make sure there was no one hiding.
That's quite brave. I hid in the toilet after The Exorcist.
Wow.
I was like, I'm just going to stay here for a little while and then I'll come out.
For a lot of people, Halloween just set a benchmark. I mean, it spawned so many imitations, its own sequels and everything else. And say what you will about the Rob Zombie films, there are merits to them.
There are merits.
The backstory is quite good.
The backstory is quite good.
He does
the
do
first
backstory.
half of the first film. I mentioned it in the last podcast, but Rob Zombie is back doing The Devil's Rejects 3. It's already in production. They're already shooting it, so I'm kind of happy that he's working on his own material.
Because he leaves Halloween alone if he is.
Yes. So the next bit of news is this is a story in the making, but Terry Gilliam's The Man Who Killed Don Quixote is finally coming out. I don't know if you've ever heard of the legendary troubles that Terry Gilliam had making this film. He's been trying to make this film for more than 20 years, but he's had problems with shady producers, financial complications, sets that got destroyed by bad weather, and entirely suspended productions where they've just had to walk away after all the money was gone and the film could never be made. A feature-length documentary was made about chronicling the series of unfortunate events that occurred making the film. But eventually he's got some money together, and Adam Driver is playing the main character in the film. And it's about a filmmaker who had like one great big film that he made. He returns back to his hometown, and there he gets pulled on to an adventure that blends fantasy with reality. Okay. So it's going to be a typical sort of Terry Gilliam film.
I actually met Terry Gilliam once as
well.
Wow.
Yes. He is a legend.
Wow. It was in uni, and I was doing film reviews for the university newspaper.
Awesome.
And coincidentally, I actually saw the original Buffy film, reviewed that.
Ooh.
And I still have the press pack. It's probably worth a fortune now.
Wow.
But I actually interviewed Terry Gilliam. I remember we were really nervous because he was the biggest name we'd ever interviewed, so he went last. And he was lovely. He had these boxes of Maltesers. We sat there and ate Maltesers. He complained about his central heating problems.
Wow.
And he was
He's
like...
so down to earth.
And I remember the publicist was saying, it's just like, just get him talking about Brazil if you were worried. And then he was like, yeah, be fine. So,
I just want to go off on a tangent and just talk about anything with him.
It was actually for the Fisher King.
Awesome.
It was for the Fisher King, yeah.
Robin Williams.
But he was great. Absolutely brilliant.
So yeah, I'm totally glad that he's finally getting his film out there.
Persistent fella. Sounds like a persistent guy. I mean,
yes.
You'd give up, wouldn't you? Most people.
It's a passion project. You don't give up until it's done.
You don't give up.
So, in the last podcast, in the question segment, we were asked to speculate about who we would cast for It Part 2. The grown-ups, essentially. But so I just thought I'd mention that the casting news has gone out there. Jessica Chastain is pretty much signed on to play Beverly Marsh in It Part 2. Okay. I don't know if you remember, she was in Interstellar.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember her, yeah.
James McAvoy has been signed on to play Bill.
He's got to finish that other instalment now.
After Split, was it?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The next one's called Glass, though. Split, I was like, oh my god. Right, it's a trilogy.
But I don't know how big a part he's going to play in Glass, because it seems to be more of it's going to be Samuel Jackson's story. So,
yeah, but I think it might bring it together. They might have a whole...
Maybe. I think it's just going to be a standalone Glass film, just like Unbreakable was what kind of had the hero villain.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But Split was just
I'd like
him.
to see her come back though, because she was pretty awesome, and the whole ending is the reason she survived and everything else. It was quite. It had a lot of layers to that film.
Yes.
I did like that.
Yeah.
I need to watch that one.
Next up in the news is Peter Jackson is actually now in talks with the Amazon producers of the Lord of the Rings series. I don't know if you're both aware of the Lord of the Rings series.
Possibly. I might have heard of this, at some point.
Amazon have literally brought the rights, I think, for like $250 million
Oh my god, I love Lord of the
from
Rings
New
so
Line
much.
Cinema, so that they can now continue the J.R. Tolkien
do the words
series.
Flogging and dead horse
But now
come to
that
mind?
is exactly what the actor who played Gimli said, because they asked him what your thoughts, and he was just like, Tolkien must be spinning in his grave at the prospect of this. So,
and I saw Gimli last year. Not Gimli himself, obviously the actor, but he was at the outing myself as a nerd here, at the Exeter Comic-Con.
Wow.
And I was too nervous to go up and say hello to him, because he was such a nice guy. I saw him going around and speaking to everyone that was selling there, and being really personable and lovely, but I was too nervous to go and say hello to him.
I would go and talk to him about
brilliant.
sliders. Like, you're one of my favourite TV professors.
Yes.
And so Peter Jackson is kind of, I think he's worried because how much The Lord of the Rings is his baby, and he was dragged through the ringer with the Hobbit films, say what you want about the quality of them. There are moments of brilliance in the moments of utter why. Yeah. And so I still love Peter Jackson, and I love his love for that universe that he is pretty much inherited. He is pretty much, I would consider, the godfather of Middle Earth.
He is.
In television and film form.
He needs to go back and make Bad Taste 2.
Bad Taste 2 would be awesome.
Bad
Brain
Taste,
Dead 2.
the sequel.
Yes,
Brain Dead.
yes.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
That would be brilliant.
But I'm kind of glad that he's there to help, as a creative advisor, even though if he's not going to be producing and directing episodes. I mean, Ian McKellen's back to play Gandalf. It is a continuation of his established universe. There's not rebooting it. It's just telling stories outside of the Lord of the Rings stories. I'm
a huge fan of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as well, and I think most people will probably feel quite protective over the films because they were just brilliant, and I really desperately don't want them to mess with what's what's already been done, because it was so great, and it's just knowing that point when to go, right, this was amazing, let's just leave it there and not mess with it, because so many times films have been ruined by sequels and things. I don't want them to do it.
I'm super excited for it and almost demand it, because there's going to be a huge vacuum in terms of fantasy television on television
especially for next year.
Because Game of Thrones is absent this year and it's finishing next year. So the moment Game of Thrones ends, the Lord of the Rings TV series should be right on the doorstep. So, and I need another medieval fantasy universe to step into.
It better be good, though. It has to be good.
Well, it's already costing them over $1 billion, and it's looking like $1 million per episode, and they're planning 5 seasons. So the production money is there. So
they have deep pockets.
They do for Lord of the Rings, and so it looks like they're going to try and treat it with respect.
Good.
We just hope it works in TV form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I hope it works.
You could always go and make Skyrim the series.
Skyrim the series,
get some fantasy on there.
I mean, that is a well-known and established name. So yeah.
We need some fantasy.
There is, but
No, I'm more of I prefer like the cyber noir and the sci-fi aspect or the horror. I've never been much of a fantasy
there's very few high-budget fantasy TV series though. I mean, we had like Xena, but it's kind of lacking in the production quality.
Yes.
I'm now expecting Game of Thrones quality, and I won't accept less.
We won't accept anything less. Yeah.
I want 10 dragons on screen. Thank you very much.
Damn it. Yes. Next bit of film news. I can't remember if we mentioned it in the last podcast, but I'm going to talk about it again because I keep getting excited every time I hear another snippet about it, and that is Bill and Ted Face the Music is one step closer to actually start filming.
Yes.
The concept is that, they were told they were going to save the world. And now that they're in their 50s, they still haven't saved the world. They're now married, they've got children, and their depression, they still haven't done what they set out to do, is ruining everything. And so they consider this film like a Christmas Carol with Bill and Ted, where they travel back in time to figure out what went wrong, essentially.
It's a bodacious lie.
They're going to be looking at their lives and rediscovering what they're actually about. And the most recent bit of news that got me excited is that William Sadler is set to reprise the role of the Grim Reaper before the next film, so I'm super stoked. It can happen sooner.
I get excited anytime Keanu Reeves is mentioned, basically, so I'm really, really pleased this is happening. But at the same time, again, there's that little voice of wariness going, please let it be good.
Please let it be good,
please, don't
it's the nostalgia button again.
Great original film. Yeah.
He's going to go John Wick in it and just like start thinking everything in May.
Crossover.
It's going to be weird seeing him go back to his surfer dude days.
Yeah, because he's tried so hard to
shake it
himself.
Off. Yes, tend to rediscover it. Yeah. And so the last bit of film news, which is almost going to tie into, or practically does tie into the theme, is that the Buffy reboot is in discussions yet again. Fox chairman and CEO Gary Newman told members of the press when discussing the success of recent reboots like X-Files and 24 that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is probably the most ripe show that Fox owns for bringing back. And added that it's something that we talk about frequently. Joss Whedon is one of the greatest creators we've ever worked for. When Joss decides it's time, we'll do it.
So no.
But the thing is, 20th Century Fox is now owned by Disney.
As they take over half of the entire Western Hemisphere.
Exactly. So now Disney owns Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and right now we're being teased whether they're actually going to make another Alien film. Now we're being teased that they might make a new Buffy series.
They're screwing with us again, aren't they?
There's been talks about over the last sort of 10 years, there was talks of a new Buffy movie. We're rebooting it, we're going to do a new movie. And then it all fell apart because Joss Whedon just went, I'm not a part of this. You're making this without me, whatever.
Good on him as well.
Well, the thing is, they never actually asked him. They just went, we own it. We can do what we want with it. We're just going to make a Buffy movie. We don't need Joss Whedon.
It's
Joss Whedon doesn't own Buffy.
Intertwined. They get nowhere without that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better off going for one of the proposed, cartoon spin-offs that were proposed when it ended. Something like that, because these days in terms of animation there's a bigger crowd out there for animation that is not just kid stuff.
The original Star Trek TV series carried on in animated form when it was cancelled. So there is last year was the 20th anniversary of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and most of the whole cast reunited almost for the first time since the show had wrapped, and they were all asked about reprising the roles of their characters, and they all said yes, except Angel. David Boreanaz said, no matter what, I'm done playing Angel, and I'll never play Angel ever again. Done, dusted.
I kind of respect that, actually, because
he said as a person, he never looks back and always looks forward to the next project, to the next thing, and doesn't ever want to go back to it. But all the others said, if Joss Whedon's doing it, we'll come back. If there's not Joss Whedon, you'll never see us come back.
It's got to be Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
And it's the Lord of the Rings type scenario, isn't it? You want it so badly. If they do it, it's got to be good, and it's got to be, the Buffy series and the Buffy original. They was just so good. I don't want anything to taint that, because that was a piece of art in itself, and you don't want anything tagging on to be not as good, because it'll ruin the whole series for us.
I'll tell you what I hope when it was the 20th anniversary, because Xbox were announcing the latest wave of backwards compatibility for the original Xbox, and I still have the original Xbox Buffy games.
Nice.
Both of them.
Chaos Bleeds?
The Buffy and then the Chaos Bleeds.
Yeah.
That was the one where they had faith in as well. Yeah. And I was like, it's the only reason I still have my 360, because everything else is like, And I just want them, please, to make these in the next wave of original
That would be great.
backwards compatibility. They were brilliant.
So I still own the original, I think it was PlayStation 1 and Xbox original Evil Dead games.
Yes.
So there's, Ash vs. Evil Dead came back after all this time. It's like bringing back Serenity or Firefly after all this time. There is a revival of some shows. Yes. It doesn't rule out the possibility of it returning.
But it's so imitated since.
True, it's but it's a lot of those shows Halloween. Imitated Buffy, but we'll definitely be getting into this soon. But the thing is with Buffy, it captured the early teens into early adulthood. Whereas if they were to come back to the show now, all of these characters would be in their late 40s or 50s, dealing with a whole new array of life and expectations and going through lots of different things. So there would be interesting stories to tell. Whereas the comic adaptation is still only, 3 or 4 years after the events in the last season.
Yeah, it hasn't gone forward that much.
I would rather see the old actors come back and play their parts modern day than see a reboot or a recast and go back to high school.
But the thing is, if they've gone to another Hellmouth and they're dealing with another Hellmouth as a group, then that's one
retreading and.
But the thing is, how interesting is it going to be when they're taking their kids to school and they've got married and stuff? It'd be very difficult, I think, to get that same amount of action and that same amount of interest into a series that's post Sunnydale. It would be very difficult.
Have you seen any of the Heathers reboot? The Heathers TV series reboot?
Really? No, nothing about it.
No shit. They actually
Winona Ryder, Christian Slayer.
Yeah, oh my God.
One of my most favourite 80s films they remade as a TV series.
Wow.
Because Tom showed me the trailer for it. I was like, you are shitting me, right? Of all the films, Heathers, and they completely rebooted it.
Jeez.
And I was just like, what the hell is going on here?
That's a random.
You can't mess with Heathers.
We're
you
in
just
Bizarro
can't mess
world.
with Heathers. Totally, yeah.
Well, with that's going to bring us to the end of the first part of the podcast, but we'll be back in part 2, going further into Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Woo! Don't go anywhere. Now, welcome back to part 2 of the podcast, where we're going to be talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was an American supernatural drama television series created by Joss Whedon. The series premiered on March 10th in 1997 on the WB and concluded on May 20th, 2003 on the UPN. The series narrative followed Buffy Summers, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, the latest in a line of women known as Vampire Slayers. In the story, Slayers are called, chosen by fate, to battle against vampires, demons, and other forces of darkness. Being a young woman, Buffy wants to, or tries to live, a normal life, but as the series progresses, she learns to embrace her destiny. And like previous Slayers, Buffy is aided by a Watcher, who guides, teaches, and trains her. But unlike her predecessors, Buffy surrounds herself with a circle of loyal friends who become known as the Scooby Gang. The success of Buffy has led to hundreds of tie-in products, including novels, comics, video games, as well as the TV series spin-off Angel. And all of the extensions thereof have been collectively termed the Buffyverse. At the moment, it has been 21 years since it started, and it was 144 episodes in 7 seasons, and is one of the most influential and touching and memorable shows that I could ever really talk about. Yes. I had a lot of television growing up in childhood, but Buffy was the first one that felt like I got it. It was sort of written for me. Yes. At the time. I was probably, 15, going through up until the age of 19, watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So it was, for me, it was hitting me at the age that the characters were.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a show that dealt with lots of real life, sort of everyday things, but sort of blown up and exaggerated by adding vampires and magic and monsters. But it was still very well written, that you could easily identify and relate to all of the characters, which is what made you keep coming back to it. It was fantastic. And so leading up to this podcast, I've, after being more than 10 years of even watching an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I thought if I'm going to talk about it, as much as I remember of it, I'm going to start and rewatch some of it.
Yeah. Lo
and behold, I watched nearly 16 episodes or more in 2 days. And it
never gets old.
And it still doesn't get old. It was, I was amazed at how well it still holds up. It still works. The performances, the music, the set pieces. Now, I also realised, and I was aware of when I was first watching it, that it also does suffer in parts from some cheapness. Some of the monster suits, some of the fight choreography, some of the camera angles, some of the editing. You're just like... But that's because it's such a minute part of it. That's part of the charm of one of the other reasons why you still love it as well. So, I've always loved the show, never really fallen out of love with the show. Really grew to like Angel because it felt a bit darker and a little bit more adult than the jokes in Buffy.
Yes.
But still, it wouldn't have existed without Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, what was your introduction to Buffy? Why did you continue to watch the show?
I remember watching the pilot episode, season 1, episode 1, but I watched it on VHS.
Wow.
I remember lending it to Ian, actually.
Yeah.
And I think it's Welcome to the Hellmouth was the title of the VHS, and I just remember thinking the wit and the humour was brilliant, and I liked the fact that it was so unpredictable. If you remember in the first episode, you had Jesse and Xander, who are both very, very similar characters, but of course, I expected these characters to be lasting all the way through, because at that point, you don't know how quickly people get killed off.
Yes.
When you're living on a Hellmouth. And, of course, in that
lots of red shirts.
Lots. And of course, Jesse gets killed off in pretty much the first episode, leaving Xander to kind of be the comedy relief.
Xander stakes him? Does Xander stake him?
Yeah, accidentally.
Accidentally, yes.
Yeah, he accidentally is holding a stake, and then Jesse just falls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the most kind of... But I think is that the first vampire kill of the whole series? If it is, that's quite interesting that it was Xander, not Buffy, that does the first vampire kill.
Interesting.
Answers below if you know the answer to this.
I'm testing your Buffy trivia as well.
I saw it, I was living abroad at the time, and you got American cable where I was working.
Oh, cool.
So I actually saw it before it came out it came out in the UK.
Nice.
And I remember speaking to some friends back home, and I was like, "Oh my god, you've got to watch this!" And it was up to the first episode I saw was actually Halloween.
Okay.
Which is it's not the best episode, but it intrigued me enough to go back and actually they were running.
Is that the one where Willow gets turned into the ghost? Does she?
They all get turned into the costumes,
Yes.
but it was still enough to intrigue me because I think that growing up, there was a real lack of like strong female characters on TV,
massively.
And to be honest, in films and stuff, I mean, quite apart from I had Mrs. Peel in the Avengers. She rocked. She so rocked. And you had the Terminator. You had Sarah Connor in the Terminator, and you had Ripley, and that was about it. There was every woman you saw on TV was in some fluffy rom-com, and yes, they could lead a rom-com.
Dimension Xena,
that was still a bit of a niche thing, wasn't it?
True.
And it was seen as a cult thing, whereas this was the first one that actually crossed over, and just. It was the combination of like, it was comedy, but it was also horror. And for me being such a big horror buff, I've always followed.
Loved vampires, vampires was the attraction to the title of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely.
So we've put together a couple of lists. We're going to talk about our top 5 or even top 10 episodes. Now, I put my list together and, we mentioned this before we recorded that a lot of people's top episodes of Buffy are going to repeat.
Yes.
And, that's probably for good reason, as that speaks volumes about the quality of the show. And Amanda, you did say something interesting, which is that it's always the other top 5, your next top 5.
Exactly, yeah. I remember, because me and my friend Kirsty, we used to talk about Buffy a lot. I remember one trip to Bath, we actually used to test each other on how many episode titles we could come. So you go like, season 2, and you'd have to list as many season 2 episodes. Or you'd have to do a synopsis, and you'd have to give this episode title.
That's extreme trivia.
We were stuck in a traffic jam going up to Bath at the time.
Understandable, yeah.
But, yeah, and it's like, when I looked at a lot of lists when we used to look at it online, it's like the same ones would always come in like the top 5 or 6, but then you deviate out from those 6 that everybody, which for me, coincidentally, all written by Joss Whedon, and you actually go outside that and you get a lot of variation. I mean, everyone tends to agree on what the worst ones are, but in between there's a lot of variations in what people will pick from that kind of like 5 to 10 kind of range. I think
you get more of a personal taste,
definitely.
people's personal interests coming into their choices then, I think.
So I'll go with my number 5, and the episode is I think it's season 5 episode 7, and the title was Fool for Love.
Oh yeah.
And this is the episode where Buffy kind of realizes that Slayers die. They get killed by vampires in combat.
Yes.
And so she tries to learn from Spike how he managed to successfully kill 2 Slayers before he failed to kill Buffy. And it's all done in flashback as well. And you cut back to see what is essentially one of my favourite characters in the show, in his prime, when he was evil, when he was actually a villain.
Looking like Billy
How
Idol.
he got his coat.
Looking like Billy
How he
Idol.
got his coat.
How he got his coat as well.
Yes.
And so I always loved the scrap in sort of the New York subway train.
Yeah.
It also, I really liked it because it was continuing to develop the relationship between Buffy and Spike, which for me was a lot more interesting, more nuanced, and much more complex than the Buffy Angel camp.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you're either a Buffy Angel or you're a Buffy Spike.
I was actually a bit of both, but the problem I had with Angel was after season 2, they brought him back in 3 and he had nothing to do. With the exception of the episode Amends, he was completely and utterly
which is why they wrote him.
And the thing with Spike, I mean, definitely, and especially in terms of season 6, they went a lot of interesting places with Spike.
Yes, but for me, it all came from that episode. For me, it was where their relationship was just really started to grow, and for me, started to work. Where I wasn't getting irritated by Spike's newfound affection for Buffy. It took me a long time to get over that.
It's that interesting speech he gives her, isn't it? Where he says to her, Slayers want death. You want death. He said, the minute you want death, I'll be there. And that line makes you go, ooh,
yes,
okay.
So for number 4, I'm going to go with season 3, episode 9, The Wish.
That's on my list as well.
Now, this was an episode that, when it was airing on television, it was on Sky One. And so we had channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Sky One. That was all we actually had. And it was on at certain time limits, and I didn't have a VCR which I could program to record at certain times, and for whatever, that 1 week I was not at home to record it or to watch it. And so it was one of those episodes that I missed and only ever got to see when I eventually brought the entire collection on VHS.
Yes.
And then watching them through, and that episode came on, and I was just like, wow, I missed this episode. And it was.
How did you cope with Doppelgangland then?
Exactly. I had I had no idea what was going on. I was like, who are these characters are talking about something I have no idea.
What's wrong with Willow?
Yes. So that was because that's how I found out about that episode. Because of course it was one that I'd missed. And so it's an episode where Cordelia makes a wish to Anya, who is at that time a revenge demon, and she wishes that Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale. Cue Armageddon. It's everyone's on curfew. Yeah. 3/4 of the population has been wiped out because the Slayer never arrived at the Hellmouth. But I thought it was fascinating rewatching it that the Buffy that turns up at the Hellmouth is like twice the badass that actual Buffy is.
She's very different, and I think what they're trying to point
she's hardcore.
Out, without the Scooby Gang,
she's rough.
She would have gone a completely different way.
Yeah.
She was just a soldier, a fighter.
Yeah.
And ironically also gets killed by the Master at the end.
Yeah.
Who rose because she wasn't there to stop it.
Yes, which I thought was great, and it was great to see the Master back playing the part again. And of course it was great to see, it's always great when you see that your heroes play bad guys.
Flip side
and
things,
so seeing Willow and Xander as vampires, and it's also shocking to see them get dusted, to see Angel get dusted, to see Cordelia get killed. It was all the what ifs and craziness, and of course back to the status quo afterwards, but it just made a great what if, and then it also made a great continuation episode with Doppelgang when Willow comes back and also gets sent back at the moment Oz pushes her onto the stake. So that was it was just a great episode. It was a fun episode.
It was a bit of break from the actual kind of storyline and just a bit of a diversion, I think. But it was brilliant to see all the characters, the dark side. I mean, I like the fact that we've just left. Cordelia's just recovering from finding out about Willow and Xander.
That's right. And she just got out of the hospital.
And there's a little bit of comic relief as well when she comes into this parallel universe. And she's, what? You're still together? I wish us into Bizarro world, and you're still together.
Yeah.
And then of course, and the irony of Oz killing Willow, well, dark vampire Willow, evil Willow, not dark Willow. That's later on. And it's just complete switch about, but it was delicious. I loved it. It's great.
Yes.
It is a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So for my number 3 is Once More We're Feeling. The musical episode. Season 6, episode 7. It's on everyone's list.
It has to be.
I don't really know anyone that was a fan of the show that hated the episode. And during the 10-year anniversary, I watched Once More We're Feeling, and that was probably the last episode I watched until recently, rewatching the show again. For me, that was a culmination of all the efforts of all of the seasons that had come before it. Absolutely. Joss Whedon always said he wanted to do a musical. He said he felt like the whole show is a musical.
Yes.
That it is that over the top and exaggerated that any one scene in any given episode, they could just burst out into song.
Yes.
And the amount of pre-production, I recently just watched the behind the scenes of making it, they had to do all of this work during the previous season's recordings. They were preparing for this musical episode to get it written, to do the recordings, to do the choreography,
weren't they?
because all the actors were terrified.
They've all got their singing trainers.
I think it was only James Masters and Giles essentially who had singing in the past, so they were familiar with it, but everyone else.
Tara was quite good vocally, wasn't she? She was very strong.
She had the romantic number, really, the love song.
She did the ballad, the slow ballad she had. Yeah, that was one of the first ones they recorded because Joss Whedon used, that to structure. He said he wanted that to be before, the climactic part. So he used the songs to structure the whole episode, he said, which is really a clever way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I liked about it, though, was the fact that this was this whole... It could have been seen as a complete novelty episode, and yet you have the bombshell during the final songs of the fact that she starts singing about I was in heaven. you know, and he still manages to get this complete bombshell into what might have just been a novelty bottle episode that just didn't apply to anything else.
Of course, he did say, didn't he? Joss Whedon said that he felt that line couldn't be delivered in dialogue, that it had to be done in song. Which is a really clever way of doing things. And he was talking about when you sing, you say things you wouldn't say when you're talking, and he said it's a reference kind of almost to Hush, where things come out in silence and in body language, it wouldn't come out in dialogue. So it's a really interesting. He refers to it. This is the sequel to Hush.
Yes, which is interesting because my next favourite second episode is Hush.
You can't leave Hush out. It was incredible. It's one of my favourite episodes of all time. Yeah.
It has the funniest moment ever.
You know, I was at work the other day and somebody mentioned that sequence in the room.
The whole slideshow briefing.
And they were just like, how are they getting away with sex jokes in primetime television where Buffy
in silence.
In silence. Yes. Yeah. If you're familiar with the show, you know exactly the moment
it's the Buffy masturbation moment.
Where she needs to get Mr. Pointy to establish the point. But it's just everyone's reactions looking at her that's priceless, So the gentleman, it's the episode where they all lose their voices. These freakish looking Cenobite creatures that glide across the surface.
They really scared me, genuinely.
The gentleman.
Yes, the gentleman. And they have that sort of pantomime kind of movements where they kind of wag their fingers like, no, not this room. No, not this room. How about this room? It's all really slow and deliberate, precise movements. Captured so well. It is a nursery rhyme, you know, it's a really dark one.
It's fairy tale,
and so of course they take people's voices so that no one can hear you screaming when they carve out your heart, and they need to capture several hearts in order to complete
seven I think it was,
7 hearts. Yes, and it is frightening imagery. It's done really well. The only thing about the episode that I don't like, and it's because it's one of the characters of all of Buffy that I really don't like, is Riley.
Had to be Riley.
And so the moments in that episode are just annoying because, you know, Riley and Buffy fancy each other. Neither of them know that one of them is, you know, the Slayer and the other one is a secret soldier operative. And they're kind of dancing around it. And I believe it's at the end of that episode, they figure out that they're both not who they say they are.
Blah
blah blah blah blah blah. And so that for me was just the only downside to that episode, but otherwise it is one of the strongest episodes of the whole show.
And then she screamed.
The princess screams. And explodes heads.
Yes, exploding heads.
That was great.
That's such a highlight.
The exploding head bit was amazing. Yeah, it's great. I love the music in that one as well. It's that one won so many awards.
Yes.
And it was the music in it was very, very creepy, and the fact that the pure terror, and when you see those gentlemen coming down the corridor, and I was thinking about 15, 16 when that, no, it would have been probably at 16, 17. And I watched so many horror films, love horror films, but that scared the bejesus out of me.
Yes,
so sort of not being able to scream and alert anyone when you're in trouble is probably one of the most terrifying things for anyone, adult or child.
Yes, great monster. Yeah, it's memorable, and so that's why it's still so high. I'm kind of all over the place really with the favourite episode. I mean, I've not gone with necessarily my favourite, but I've gone with what I think is the most dramatic and unforgettable and most skippable episode of any show. That is Series 5, Episode 16, The Body.
I told you.
We're all nodding in agreement here.
The death of Joy Summers isn't just a benchmark of Buffy, it's just one of the most harrowing episodes of television. And so when re-watching Buffy, I skipped the episode. I've seen the episode through twice, and I don't think I ever really want to watch it again.
It's emotionally draining. It really is.
I watched the behind the scenes and some clips of the episode, and I balled up in tears just watching a highlight of the episode. I was like, I'm definitely not watching this episode again. I cannot deal with it because unlike most of Buffy, that episode is hyper real.
Yes. There's no music.
There's no music. There's a lot of people just waiting around for nothing to happen.
And there's zero comic relief.
Zero. There is some comic relief in terms of Anya.
But
Anya, it's comic, but it's
a raw childlike innocence of her trying to understand the finality of death.
She'll never do this, she'll never do that. And I was just like, oh.
And she was here and now she's not, and I'm sad, and and she didn't know what to say, did she, to people? And they're shouting at her because she's she said, I don't understand how this happens, and it's really, that itself made me quite teary, let alone the actual death of Joyce. Yeah.
It's it's the death of anybody's mother, and anybody watching, or anybody ever watching that episode of television is at some point or other going to lose a parent, or a friend. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer was really good at preparing you for life. Yes. Buffy always said that life is the hardest thing about living.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So going through those emotions and going through that loss, it's unbearable.
Yeah. And I think it was a good decision is the fact that she doesn't die from anything supernatural.
That's the big thing.
That was very well done.
It's not anything she could have fought. It's something she's got no control over, and it's something completely non-supernatural.
That renders us all powerless. There's nothing you can do, nothing at all. No matter, even if you're a superhero, you're subject to death. You can't
now
avoid that.
Also, coming from a show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where characters die all the time, you know, but very few of them carry the weight that was portrayed in the body.
Yes.
In earlier seasons, Willow went through a similar thing when she went into one of the dorm rec rooms, and there was like 6 guys in there. Prophecy girls. And they were all eaten by vampires. And she was like, this was a room that I went into every day. I knew all those people, and she has difficulty.
They made it their own. They had fun.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like MySpace anymore.
That's right, yeah. And so, there's been moments where it has been explored. Not really as heavily since season 2, when Giles went through, something similar when Jenny Calendar was killed off. And his sort of reaction in dealing with loss. So the show does deal with it, in every aspect. But then the other 90% of the show, characters die, and the characters immediately move on, and then it's not really. You don't really feel the weight of other characters' losses much.
And their reactions were absolutely brilliant as well. The reactions of the actors and the characters afterwards, really, it's like a double whammy. You find out Joyce is gone, and then to see the reactions afterwards is upsetting even more so, I think. And I think what was brilliant about that episode is that the flashbacks, and in the flashbacks you get glimmers of hope, like, she wakes up, she's breathing, and then you cut straight back.
The harsh reality of it.
And that's how we cope with things, isn't it? If there's something really traumatic happening,
maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not real.
we question it, and that's what makes it so
how you try to deal with it and cope with it and process it. To understand it, And
of course, Buffy throws up in that episode because and you just think,
the
shock,
and
that's exactly, they've kept it really realistic as to what would happen to a person's body when they're going into shock, and it's a real
crack up when Giles moves Joyce, and she keeps saying you're not supposed to move the body, and that's when she says the body like the second time. That's when she realizes it, or it sets in. It's hard to watch. It's very hard to watch. So well done.
Very tough.
So that's why I would say that is probably the best episode of the whole show in terms of, that episode is unlike every other episode of the show, though.
Yeah.
And that is also the power of Buffy, is that they have episodes that kind of are all over the place. They explore different themes with different subgenres within itself. So I'd highly rate that episode above all the others.
Incredible. And it's good to hear a bloke say that made me teary.
That's
a good thing because men need to admit this more often, because I know loads of guys that have watched that episode and really choked up. So it's a tough one to watch.
Yeah. So Hannah, do you want to go into your top 5? I know we've mentioned a couple of them already.
Let's go for the ones that you haven't mentioned, definitely. So Hush was in mine, and so was The Wish, and so was Once More Was Feeling. Another one I've gone for, just for pure kind of fun factor, was Fear Itself, season 4, episode 4.
Actual size.
Sums it up in one.
Laugh. Yes,
even now gets me. But I've got a huge passion for kind of gothic culture and Halloween, and so any episode on Halloween, I always thought, that's me, I'm in for that. And the fact that you get a bit more insight into Anya and why she doesn't like bunnies,
yes,
brilliant.
Ongoing joke,
and the fact that they're all in costume, and the fact that Halloween is actually a bit of a respite for them in terms of paranormal activity. In the Buffyverse,
all monsters take the night off
because it's tacky. Because it's Halloween, you don't do monstery things on Halloween because it's tacky. But they end up in this big kind of sorority house, in which these sorority guys have taken this ancient book and copied a symbol just for shits and giggles, to a Halloween decoration. But then someone cuts their hand, bleeds on the symbol, and then the symbol gets activated, and basically the whole house gets possessed by what is a fear demon. Yeah. And you see all these characters, and there's great development of the characters in this episode, because you see them facing what they're most afraid of. So Willow's afraid of being by herself, Xander's afraid of being ignored, and Buffy's afraid of, being isolated and abandoned by everyone. And you see Oz turning into a werewolf. There's just so much going on individually and as a group. And then, of course, there's that absolute brilliant climax at the end when Giles says, destroying, the ways to get rid of the fear demon, destroying the symbol, and Buffy just, immediately, like she does, trounces in there, smashes it through. It's not one of them, and will bring about the manifestation of the fear demon, which, and you see all this big smoke and screen, and it's a metaphor for life, really. It's a little bit of an anticlimax. You're like, oh, okay, right, okay. Little fear demon comes out, and then Xander, the best bit, Xander's taunting it. Who's a little fear demon? Who's a little fear demon? and Buffy just stomps on it at the end, and it's just all that build up.
And Giles says, oh, don't taunt the fear demon. Why? It's tacky.
It's just a great comedy episode. It's brilliant. Yeah. It's got Halloween. It's got it's got a lot of build up, and then you've got that brilliant, hilarious end, which is not how any of us thought it was going to go. I don't think.
No. I like the call out to the previous Halloween as well, because it was like she dresses up as Red Riding Hood, but with a basket full of weapons, and she's like, if we get turned into our costumes this time round, I'm prepared.
I did that costume for Halloween one year, Red Riding Hood with all the weapons. It was it was brilliant. Nice. Besides that one, oh gosh, this had to go on my list because I'm a huge fan of the book. Dracula. Buffy vs. Dracula Season 5, Episode 1, directed by David Solomon, and it's because it's mythology meets modern day. I thought that was really...
And that's why I hated it.
You hated it?
I hate that episode of Buffy.
I like the last 2 minutes of that episode, for obvious reasons. But I hate the rest of it.
I really enjoyed the fact that the mythology met modern day, and the guy that played Dracula, I think they could have cast, after you've seen Gary Oldman, anyone that plays Dracula is not going to be as good. But the guy did a good job, and I like the fact there's lots of comedy in it. You've got, Xander's turned into kind of a Renfield character, is like, he does that big speech about, oh, I'm always someone's bitch, and
I'm the one who gets syphilis. I'm the one who's
funny syphilis. And but you've got Giles getting, chewed up by the Dracula babes. Riley finds him and he's like, oh, I've left my shoe, I better go back in. And I think, the whole thing, I love the Dracula books, I love Buffy, so putting those things together was a bit of a wet dream for me, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
I think I had too high expectations, and I just really didn't like seeing watered down Dracula.
Totally. For me,
it was just a sham.
Totally good.
I also just hated the whole, you just can't kill Dracula, you just stake him and he's just like, whatever, just comes back.
The bit at the end when you see him reforming, I can still see you. Yeah,
just a really, for me, upended the mythology of the Buffy the Vampire, Buffyverse. I just didn't like it.
If you put Dracula or anything, I'll love it. I've got an issue with it.
That's
so
fair.
The only other one I think I had that was different, and again, I just really enjoyed the whole character development in this. Witch, Series 1, Episode 3.
Wow.
Which I think is often overlooked. Stephen Cragg was the director for that one. And it's the first time we meet Amy, who of course comes back in later seasons.
Season 6 comes back.
After being
comes
a rat.
Back in 3 as well. well, briefly.
A second,
Very briefly.
And then has a recurring role as a rat.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're introduced to Amy, and I really connected with this because I was obviously in dance college at the time, and it was the cheerleading episode. So I really, a lot of the lads probably enjoyed that episode for various reasons, short skirts, etc. Lots of flexible ladies in that episode. But Buffy's there shouting, it's that bit where she shouts, "Turn up the music," and she's there, she loves it. But Amy is slightly not who she appears to be, and we see that girl at the beginning, Amber, doing that dance, and they're saying, oh, she's on fire, and she literally combusts. And we find out that Buffy and anyone else going up for the cheerleading squad, they're getting picked off one by one. Cordelia goes blind during a driving test, and we find out that Amy is not who we think she is. And there's this whole twist where Giles goes to Amy's house after Buffy becomes very seriously ill. It's a bloodstone vengeance spell, so they suspect Amy's a witch. And they go to Amy's house, and all of a sudden, the mother is completely, we expect her to be this evil character, but the mother is in fact Amy in the mother's body, so they switched bodies. And then there's this whole kind of how do we get around this without her finding out. And the mother character is actually really evil. There's a real kind of role reversal there, because you've got a complete juxtaposition with Joyce, who's like the really kind of caring, lovely, nurturing mother, and this woman who is just absolutely vile to her daughter and wants to relive her youth. And I'm sure a lot of people will want to relive their youth, but they don't steal their daughter's bodies to do it. And of course, at the end, we've got this great karmic twist at the end where her mother, does this spell to send Amy away, and it backfires, and she ends up stuck in this trophy from her glory days, like permanently.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is
the mantelpiece.
Do you remember the callback when Oz is just stood in front of the display cabinet and he's saying, "Have you seen this?"
The eyes are moving. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so brilliantly done. But that episode, I like the fact we got to meet Amy, and we got to see a bit more of the character development, and the fact that it was a bit of a wow, Buffy's actually a little bit vulnerable at some points, because up until that point, I think it's only episode 3 of the first series, and up to that point she's been pretty hardcore, and then all of a sudden she's just almost died because some witch has cast a spell on her. So we get to see a different side of her, and Giles, of course, carrying her. That's quite a visually arresting bit, because she's normally so strong. But and it introduces us to the idea of witchcraft. And Willow at that point has nothing to do with witchcraft, and is really quite freaked out by it, which is quite ironic considering how her character develops later on.
Yeah. It's I actually, when I was rewatching Buffy, I always tend to skip the first season. I find that the most painful season to watch.
Well, because apart from 12.
Apart from the finale, I found it was the season where it was finding its feet. It established all of the characters, but it didn't play with them really well.
I think what you have in episode 12 as well is Joss Whedon's talent for some of the speeches. Yeah. And that speech in episode 12 where she goes into the library and she's like, "I'm 16, I don't want to die. I'm not going to do it." And this was really emotional, and that was the point at which I think in Buffy you actually saw something more.
All the foundations were laid in that season. Yeah,
definitely.
But it was season 2 for me, or I think that's where they started to play with the characters and to explore the world.
I enjoyed the narratives in season 1 an awful lot, and when I watched a bit of season 1 today, and it's the music isn't as developed, and the sound score is kind of horror movie-ish, and it is, you can tell they're finding their feet. But I think as it was, I really enjoyed just the pure narratives in that season. And the end, I like you say that at the end when you get to see more of the character development was great. It was fantastic, and then it was left us in a great place for season 2.
Yes, because I still feel they were the stereotypes in the first season. They weren't fully explored, but you still identified with the characters and what was going on.
Even at its weakest, it was still good.
And the monsters were interesting, except for the demon that was on the computer. Didn't like that.
Oh no, I Robot You Jane.
Yes, I hate that one.
When we tried to come up with the worst 5, I Robot You Jane is definitely in the
top
worst 5.
Yes, for sure. So Amanda, do you want to give us your list?
I was like, well, top 5 I thought quite typical, but then I had to wait and see what all of you had picked.
Cool.
So obviously The Body and Hush were obviously on there. So looking at other ones, and Once More with Feeling, of course. So I was actually looking, and I was saying I had a bit of a problem with Angel in season 3 because I really thought that was he was useless. But I recently watched Amends.
I love that episode.
When the snow comes down. Yeah. And I must admit, I thought that was gorgeous, because it was after all of this trauma of, it's like the betrayal with Willow and Xander, and all of these types of, really everyone in the group had just there was so much feeling going around with that, and I thought Amends was just such a gorgeous episode.
It was
in terms of that, and I love the fact that it's a minor thing, but how there's 6 or 7 times through the entire series, it's like the little zombie at the end. And this one is like, I need a hug. And I was like, I still remember the first time I saw that on TV. I was like, that one I just really found really emotional. So definitely Amends for me. I just really thought that was just a lovely episode. And also leading from that, my next I would probably go as well is, I was looking at some of the writers, and I seem to pick a lot of Jane Espenson's.
Cool.
So Band Candy.
I love Band
Candy.
I was going to pick
Band Candy, quite honestly, Joyce and Ripper, absolutely just, it's one of the funniest episodes ever. And it really has to be. The comic relief in there is incredible.
And the role reversal with Buffy and her mum. It's like, when I buy the geek machine, oh my god. And it's just like she's being such a big child about it.
And the actual story is completely immaterial. And it's all about the work that they all do. And even Snyder, they turn into this wannabe tagger-on. And it's just everything about it. I just find it one of the funniest episodes ever. And it brings back Ethan Rayne as well. And he always kind of like popped in and out as a little bit of a mischief.
Fuck things up a little bit.
Sort of a low-key type thing. And I love everything, the way they did. But still in terms of what I really liked as well, in terms of throughout the entire series of Buffy, is the fact that it rewards those viewers who've been with it for ages. There are always little callbacks. So this was the little callback to Ripper. And this then calls back to another one of my favourites, if I discount all the ones you've all picked. And the other one that I had was Earshot.
Which I know the name of that one.
And Earshot was the one that got delayed because of the shootings in
That's right.
the UK
it's
at
the
least.
one with Jonathan.
It's the one with Jonathan,
Yeah.
And Earshot was just so such a really haunting episode, I think, in the fact that it was just everybody's pain.
Yes.
You know, and she could hear everybody's pain that was just... And initially it's quite funny. It's just like, she thinks she could develop the tail or whatever, but it's like... She's just driven mad by everybody's pain that she can hear. But then the funniest thing right at the end of the episode is when she actually finds out the truth and banned candy, and it was like on a police car twice. And that was the kind of thing that was really built into it, was these little call-outs that, like, if you hadn't seen it previously, it wouldn't mean anything, but you're like, oh my god.
But Giles is her surrogate father. So more so.
It's like in Helpless when Dee has to like neutralise her so she can do that test.
Oh my gosh!
And they said, and they fired him because he was too much of a father for her, and she kept dropping all these hints for him to go skating with her because her dad had cancelled, and she was like, well, maybe a Watcher might take his student or his Slayer, and
obviously I'm rewatching series 6 at the moment, and I just got to the point where Buffy's having issues raising Dawn and is shirking responsibilities onto Giles. And Giles is, she's come back and just gone, oh, you can handle this, Giles, and she walks off, and then Giles is just like, hey, I'm actually going back to England now, so you're only going to be able to, evolve if you do this yourself. And watching him on the plane and watching Buffy be all pissed off, just like, oh, Giles, are you making the right decision, really? No. Should you just be the dad or not? I don't know.
We all wanted him to. Like, oh, come on, Giles, go on.
But he has to have the absence so he can come back, all badass. And, that they planned that they were going to, a Ripper TV spin-off, weren't they?
Yeah, they were looking at that, weren't
they? But unfortunately, never really materialised, which is a shame.
Anthony Head's just a great actor. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he was brilliant as Giles. He's been brilliant in lots of things. But he was very, very much, And I like the fact that he's English as well, because in American sitcoms, obviously, like, a lot of the time the English people are portrayed as, the evil people for some reason in films.
So just Die Hard. It's the foreign accent effect. It really is, I tell you.
But he's like an intrinsic character to this, and he's a good guy, so I was quite pleased about that.
I just watched the episode as well. I think it was Tabula Rasa.
Tabula Rasa.
Where Giles and Spike's son. They called him Randy Giles.
It's a family name.
Yeah. That was so funny.
And him and Anya were married, and that was actually the next one. Like you said, about the next one on the list. That was the next one on my list as well.
I love those episodes where they again just play with the characters and just do something odd and wacky. A one-off kind of episode. Yeah.
And I think what I picked next was I had season 7. I thought was good, and I loved the overall theme of it.
It was intense for parts.
It was, and some of and obviously Nathan Fillion, absolutely brilliant.
Of course.
And I love again the call back to the first from Amends.
Yes.
But I have to say I have to say Chosen obviously would be my number 2.
Yes.
There because simply bringing everything together after you'd been on this entire journey with them.
Yeah.
And what particularly I love is there's a scene at the end between before they go into battle, and it's with Faith.
Yes.
And they're going on about the fact that it's like, nobody will ever know all that we have to take on and everything like that. And she said, yeah, but it's a good job we're hot chicks with superpowers. And it basically said, and it was just this whole moment of playfulness in the whole thing going. And you have Spike's sacrifice.
Yeah.
And for me, the whole theme of the entire series is when every potential gets their power.
Yeah.
And across the world,
is a potential.
all of these girls rose up.
Yeah.
And
that's a real that spine-chilling moment.
Yeah, that choked me up. And I think that really goes back to the entire series is that particular theme.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
it is a standout episode as well in terms of every series finale has been a big spectacle. Yeah. Except one series where it was the
Grave. The only one not written by Joss Whedon, Grave, is the one I don't like.
Okay. Yeah. The Grave is the Series 6 Willow.
It's Willow, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Also, I think it was Season 4's finale was the Dream, the Nightmare, the repercussions.
The Cheese Man.
Yes. But The Chosen is obviously just not the series finale, but the whole series finale. The very last episode of Buffy, and it's the whole spectacle of fighting an army of demons in the Hellmouth underground.
Yes.
The sacrifices. I think the only weakness to that episode is Anya's exit of the show.
I actually thought that was really good.
She went out fighting.
I thought, considering her entire character arc, I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What I really liked as well is the fact that I'd read Frey. Mm-hmm. And so the whole bringing in of the scythe, and bringing in the scythe, I just, when the scythe appeared, I was like, oh my god, the scythe from Frey.
Yeah.
So it was again these whole call outs. So, for my number one, okay, I did actually pick Becoming.
Okay.
Because Becoming, quite honestly, for me, is just chokes me up every single time.
It's one of those episodes,
it's one of those. So for there's been this whole back end of season 2 where first of all it's a close run with Innocence.
Yes.
So that was the first time you saw a complete switcheroo in the series.
Angelus
she had sex with Angel for the first time, and it's like every girl's nightmare is the fact you have sex with someone and the next day the bloke's going to be like, push you off.
But in this case,
he literally, given the metaphors, turns into Angelus. And spends the second half of the second season torturing her. There's Jenny Callender's dead.
Yeah.
There's all of these
He's
types
all about
of things.
the torture. He's passionate about the torture. That's
and then it gets to Becoming, and it's like, so there's this demon that's going to swallow the entire world, and it gets to the whole point. He kidnaps Giles. He tortures Giles with visions, and then Drusilla does the whole vision with Jenny. And then it gets to the point it's like she's ready to fight Angelus, and then you have the whole thing. It's like he opens the Hellmouth, and once he's opened it, they know the only thing that can seal it is his death. But meanwhile, Willow is doing this spell, and you also have Xander, and she sends Xander off, going, "Tell her I'm trying to do the spell," and he just arrives and says, "Willow says kick his ass," and doesn't actually. And then that whole final thing when she's just there, she has him, his soul comes back, and she has to kill him.
He looks totally confused, like, what's going on?
And she just tells him to close his eyes, and then it fades out with that lovely song from Sarah McLachlan, and you're just like, oh my god.
I was a mess after that. That was a complete mess.
That one just totally put me through the ringer.
Joss Whedon said it's the greatest love story he'll ever tell in any medium he ever explores, and that's why we literally have the Buffy Angel and Buffy Spike camp.
There's thousands of YouTube videos dedicated to the Buffy Angel, Buffy Spike.
But Becoming is my number one, because I think that with Innocence, when he turns after the sex, that was when Buffy actually became something more. Mm-hmm. It became something more than a monster of the week.
Yes.
And with Becoming, it truly became great television.
That's why I've got an interesting question is what is your best season? Your favourite and best. It has to be one season.
You see, that's the thing. I only like the back end of 2.
Okay.
for me, in terms of consistency,
for a whole season.
Season 3.
See, I've written here season. 2 or 3. I was so.
I didn't like the
decided.
first end of season 2.
I
really didn't like it.
It got the best episodes were the ones with Spike and Drusilla.
Yeah, I really enjoyed
the introduction.
Hard.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And of course, when Angel becomes Angelus, and then the 3 of them together.
Yeah.
For me, that was just perfect. That their stories went beyond the screen for me. I was, my fan fiction writing
there was
the history
real
of those
chemistry
characters.
in terms of it gelling.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, originally Spike was to die in season 2, staked by Angel, and then he would run off with Drusilla as his new sort of bride. So. But obviously, there was, people were wearing T-shirts saying, save Spike, don't kill Spike.
Yeah.
So
he's an incredible character,
and so glad that they kept
him alive. And he does come back in 3 for the whole
one episode.
But that is one of the best ones when he's telling everybody the truth about the fact that you'll never be friends.
I also have written down my favourite quote of all of Buffy is, you're not friends, you'll never be friends. Love isn't brains, children, it's blood. Blood screaming inside you to work its will. I'm maybe love's bitch, but at least I'm man enough to admit it.
I actually brought along my favourite quote as well.
Cool, go for it.
And my favourite quote actually does come from season 3.
Yeah.
And Becoming makes me cry, but this one tears me up. And it's the one that, the prom? And it's the one with the hellhounds, and the episode itself is pretty but they gave her the Class Protector Award. And they say, it's like, most of us never found the time to get to know you, but that doesn't mean we haven't noticed you. We don't talk about it much, but it's no secret that Sunnydale High isn't really like other schools. A lot of weird stuff happens here, but whenever there was a problem or something creepy happened, you seemed to show up and stop it. Most of the people here have been saved by you or helped by you at one time or another. We're proud to say that the class of 99 has the lowest mortality rate of any graduating class in Sunnydale history, and we know at least part of that is because of you. So the senior class offers its thanks and gives you this. It's from all of us, and it's got written here, Buffy Summers Class Protector. And it's that little cheesy parasol.
And it's just...
And that... And Jonathan is another issue, but that's a whole different story. But that made me cry. It really did. I still tear up thinking about that. I must admit, it's like.
And of course, that parcel gets destroyed later on when she goes to college.
Sunday,
and you just see her.
That bitch. I thought Sunday was going to be a major villain. She's like gone in the episode. Yeah.
You don't fuck with the parasol.
But Jonathan, he was brilliant.
He was an interesting recurring character. Superstar was another great episode.
Yes. The titles.
Yeah. The opening credits.
Because usually you'd skip past the titles and then you watch it and you wait.
This is different.
Wait a minute.
What's different?
What's going on here? What's happening?
Yeah, it was a great episode. Okay, I've got some interesting trivia here.
Okay.
And this is actors that were not particularly famous, but got their start in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I noticed one yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, now...
Go on, you go first.
Okay, so Clea Duvall, Season 1, Episode 11, she played Marcy the Invisible Girl. She was in The Grudge, American Horror Story,
Faculty,
Better Call Saul, Faculty, Ghosts of Mars...
I've got a bit of a thing against Ghosts of Mars, but still.
Wentworth Miller. He was in Season 2, Episode 20, Go Fish.
One of the worst episodes ever. Well, it's got Wentworth Miller in it.
Prison Break, if anyone was remembering in. Resident Evil, played fucking Chris Redfield. Waste of space. Here was an interesting one. Pedro Pascal. Season 4, Episode 1, The Freshman. You might recognise him as Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
He was Buffy's best friend in Episode 1, Freshman, who gets turned into a vampire.
And he also goes on to play Agent Whiskey in the Golden Circle.
That's right, yes, yeah.
And I recognised him last night and went, and where the half always doubts me and says, no, I'm sure that's not him.
Yeah.
And he had to eat his words. That was him this time.
Yeah. Cal Penn from Harold and Kumar. He was in episode Beer Bad, Season 4, Episode 5.
Another worst ever.
Another worst
That's
episode.
In one of my top 5 worst. Beer
Drunk
Bad,
Buffy.
Go Fish.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That wasn't great.
Amy Adams, Season 5, Episode 6.
She's in it. I don't remember that.
I haven't seen her.
She's Tara's family.
Oh,
when the family turn up.
I I forgot.
And of course,
totally
she was American Hustle, Arrival. She's playing Lois Lane in Justice League right now.
Arrival was a fantastic film.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
Felissa Day, you were mentioned earlier.
Well, of course, Felicia Day.
She played V, one of the potential Slayers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember her. She was...
And the last one that I have is Michael Kudlitz. He was in season 3, episode 13, the Zeppo, playing Bob.
Yep.
Rising from his grave, he would later be playing Abraham in The Walking Dead.
Oh,
He's the one. Was he the one? It was like, I hope you've been taping all the Walker Texas Ranger for us. Was it that one?
Yes,
yeah. I've missed so much, and he's like, I've been taping Walker Texas Ranger for you.
So I was surprised that there were so many characters or so many actors that started in Buffy.
Zeppo was another one. If you look at it, there's all these experimental ones. So you have the It's a Wonderful Life version of The Wish. Yes, you've got the musical. You've got the silent one, and the Zeppo as well is interesting because you're seeing this whole apocalypse go on in the background,
and it follows Xander has
this
limelight.
whole thing. And that is the scenes, and it's done so well in the scenes where 1 minute Buffy's getting like thrown out of the library battling a monster,
by a tentacle,
whilst he's chasing a zombie who's got a bomb in the basement. Yeah.
If you like Xander, that's a great episode because Xander takes the forefront in that one.
Yeah, I think Xander had his best moment was he was sat with Dawn, and it's season 7, and Dawn's just found out that she might have been a potential, and then she's found out she isn't a potential, and she just hands it over, and he has this whole, and he sits down and he comforts her, and he's like, they've got all the superpowers, they'll never know that,
but you're incredible.
Oh, that was lovely.
There should be, those characters are the heart and the moral compass of the group to stop the others from going astray, which is why Xander has his moment in the grave.
Yeah. But what I find, and what I thought was special about the series as well, is the fact that no one is ever perfect.
Yeah.
Xander cheats, has that whole moment with Willow, and Willow has that whole moment. Then they actually have this moment of weakness. Buffy has so many moments herself when she makes some really bad mistakes.
Which is, I'm just going to make my next question is, who do you think out of the whole show had the best character arc? As a character. Ooh. See, I was torn with quite a few characters, and I started to chip it away. And I think that it was either Buffy or Willow, I think, underwent the most changes as characters that evolved as characters, either for better or for worse. Went through the most changes.
Well, Buffy went through like real life changes.
Yeah.
She went through the normal changes. She went from being a teenager to an adult, having to look after somebody else, be the wage earner, look after a role. I think that Willow definitely went through the most changes.
From the nerdy girl to the experimental stage, the lesbian, the witchcraft, the
bad,
all those things. Yeah. But what I'm thinking more of is the fact that Willow was the ultimate victim at the start.
Yes,
and by the end of it, she was the most powerful person in it.
Yes,
and that's always the thing, is the fact that Buffy's always supposed to be all these monsters are metaphors for everything else.
Yeah.
And I know earlier on when we were talking about favourite seasons, and it's like this is why I really find season 6 hard to watch.
Yeah.
I really do. And yet season 6, I think it's when Jane Espenson is showrunner, he's gone off to do Firefly and everything else.
Yes. Yeah.
And what you saw there was, as a female, you saw a lot of really hard stuff. You saw things to do with attempted rape. You saw the whole sex.
Yeah, that was
really
Warren
difficult.
tries to make his girlfriend. He has
a sex
make
robot.
a sex slave.
It got really dark.
And it got dark, but in ways that were more realistic than anything that had gone on before, but from a female point of view. You know, and it's like that. I don't know. It's like coming from a female perspective as opposed to a male perspective.
Yeah.
You talk about character development, but also in terms of what they were willing to tackle. I think it became
a massive leap in that season.
Yeah, it did. In terms of issues they tackled, there was a lot of stuff which I think. What was it? There's some quote. He was at a conference. He was getting an award at Equality Now, and somebody said, "Why do you still write strong female characters?" And he said, "Because you still ask me that question."
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant
people
response.
still and that
Brilliant
that
response.
for me is about development.
Yeah.
Every character in there, but particularly Willow, is about development, but it's almost from a female perspective, I think.
For sure, yeah. But
so many of us can relate to Willow. I think a lot of us start off at school being very, very quiet and very shy. I know I was, and then as an adult, you get these experiences, you get stronger, you find out who you are.
Yeah.
But the character development I enjoyed most, I think, was Spike, definitely.
Yes, yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I was going to say, the next thing would be favourite character of the whole show, other than Buffy. And so Spike is my response to, Spike for me saved the show in some sense.
Yeah, Spike's brilliant.
I loved the fact that he was a villain who sort of, instead of was being cursed to get his soul back, kind of genuinely kind of earns it back. And that for me made him an even more complex and interesting hero, because he still tried to maintain the bad boy image.
Yeah. In Chosen, when she, at the very end, and she says, I love you, and he says, no, you don't, but thank you for saying that. Anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, that whole story arc does come to a conclusion there. Yeah. But I mean, it is very well explored in series 6 and 7, the Spike-Buffy kind of relationship, and it is dark and it is complicated, and
that gets quite dark in places. But my favourite Spike moment is actually an Angel. And do you remember Harsh Light of Day? He's perched on the rooftop and he's taking the piss out of Angel. He's like, oh, look at me with my puffy hair and all of this stuff.
It's where he's turned up to follow the Ring of Amara.
Yeah, and that is my favourite Spike moment. It's not actually in Buffy.
And I think around like a gigantic poof.
That was so funny, really.
Yeah.
It's great.
There was when Spike sort of reappeared in series 3 for that one episode, and then reappeared in series 4 again, and then got captured by the Initiative. Got chipped and neutered, and then discovering that he could fight demons.
Yeah.
But it was all of the sequences where he was tied up in Giles's bathtub, where he ended
the ones in Xander's basement,
and
the wash day when he's got the Hawaiian shirt.
He shrunk all of his black clothing.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He had some of the best dialogue. He was just a great character. He was just easily favourite character. Of course, the flashback sequences with Spike, Angelus, Drusilla, and Darla are just some of the best. And there was an episode of Buffy that continued into Angel as well, where explored that backstory, and Angel getting his soul back and then trying to hide it from the others.
What do you think then is Buffy's, what would be your favourite opponent or enemy or big bad?
And, best villain. It was, I think, other than those characters, Spike, Drusilla, Buffy, Drusilla, Darla, it was the Mayor Faith combination.
Yeah. I love Faith.
I really like Faith.
Character.
I had the hots for Eliza Dushku for like 10 years.
I think people still do. A lot of people still do.
I caught up with her. I caught up with her in Banshee. She had quite a.
I saw her in The Saint. They made this whole one-off pilot for a relaunch of The Saint, and she was in that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And heads up to Wrong Turn that she was in as well.
Yes, Wrong Turn.
Fighting hillbillies.
Soul Survivors.
I watched everything with Eliza Dushku. She was even in. She was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as well.
Yeah, she's my first girl crush, I think, Eliza Dushku. She's amazing.
She was like the badass Slayer, the one with attitude, the one that was sexy.
It's mirror. It's all about mirrors, isn't it?
She was unrestrained by a watcher and family and friends, and she fell into the dark side.
They had some brilliant episodes, where the body swap.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. But one of her favourite, and I remember I was rewatching season 3. And it was just after she'd killed that Deputy Mayor Finch. And I had this flash forward, and I remembered in Angel, when she ends up in Angel, and she has that whole fight in the rain with Angel, and she's just saying, kill me, I'm bad. Just, and it's just such self-hate.
Yeah. And Angel says,
and I think that was
keeping that character interesting, and so when she ended up in the coma, but... it was kind of like written out, but waiting for the moment to bring her back. And, she appeared in the last half of Series 7 of Buffy.
Yes.
And such great redemption.
Definitely. Actually, she ends up being the leader of the Chosen. And then she comes to Buffy and she was like, I didn't realise how alone you could feel. And this is what you felt like every single day. Yeah. And I loved the character. I loved her character.
Great character arc.
Really did.
Yeah. She was brilliant. I liked her in season 7 when she turns up, and then, you know, because up to that point everything's been so serious because they're getting ready to, you know, for the apocalypse, and she just takes them out on the booze for the night, and she's just like, let's have some fun, yo.
Cut loose.
Yeah, and I think she represents that in everyone. Everyone has that side of them where they just want to just cut loose and not give a shit about what they say or what they do, and I think Faith is a great juxtaposition to Buffy in that respect, because Buffy's normally quite reserved and quite controlled.
Yeah,
she's brilliant.
The what if.
What if?
I think it could, if she also answered a lot of questions that you might have had about the whole situation, in the fact that, you know, what if she killed a human by mistake? Does, you know, the fact that she saves thousands of people mean it's okay to kill a couple?
Accidentally or,
accidentally and then on purpose. Because previous to that, you'd only had, like, the Ted issue where...
Yeah.
That was a great episode as well.
Yeah, Ted, where it was like she thought she'd killed someone with her friend, who then turns out to be a robot, but still.
Yeah. So how about favourite recurring characters, side characters?
Jonathan.
Yeah.
Although Warren in season 7 does try and almost take away Jonathan's throne. But Faith is my favourite villain, but Jonathan, he pops up everywhere.
Well, it's not Warren. Warren's the leader of the trio, wasn't he?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's
Andrew.
Andrew.
No, I thought that was Andrew. That's Andrew.
Yeah, in
Warren's
series
the leader,
7
and Andrew's
became
the
really
one in 7
good
who gets
comedic
tied
relief
up.
in series 7.
Hit my hot pockets.
I really liked his one episode in Angel where he turns up.
Oh, yeah. But I think Jonathan, it's like he
was there since
everywhere.
The first season, so he was the most recurring.
When the mean girls are picking on Cordelia because she's been dumped by Xander,
and
he's like, "We've got your next person," and he's sat on the steps.
We're pretty sure he won't dump you.
He ends up in a queue here, and it was just this background character.
It's like, where's Wally?
He picks up, and then suddenly you had like Superstar, and
when he took over. Yeah.
Oh, that was brilliant.
That's a great episode.
Yeah.
Great episode.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's going to wrap up this part of the podcast. It's been amazing talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think we could easily continue discussing it. Yes. I think we will regroup at some point and maybe do an Angel-centric themed episode of the podcast, because we love talking about this show. It has moved us ever since it first aired on television, ever since it was eventually brought to an end. You know, but I'm not a big fan of the comic book adaptations or the novels that have come afterwards. I really enjoyed Frey, wasn't it?
Frey was good,
yeah. But other than that, I'm still re-exploring the show all over again, watching the behind the scenes, listening to the commentary tracks, and re-watching series 6, and I'll probably binge watch all through of 7 as well.
It's so easy.
It stood up so well.
Yeah,
still relevant.
It's still relevant,
and it's just influenced everything that's come since. You wouldn't have, to be honest, it's like, okay, there is the slightly side effect of now every time somebody becomes a vampire, they develop like martial arts skills, but you know, spontaneously develop.
One of the episodes?
And but
how do they always come out like
all
that?
of these, so many series just would not have existed without it.
Yes,
it definitely wouldn't have. It's been responsible for so much,
so many
including
doors.
Supernatural. Still
quite
today
honestly.
is still referencing Buffy.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't be around if it wasn't for that show. For me, I always put the argument when people go, "Oh, Buffy," I'm like, that's one of the first shows ever that changed the format of television as you watch it.
Yeah,
because before that, you had X-Files, and it was Monster of the Week. You know, status quo, return to normal. The next week, where Scully's like, "What are you talking about? There's no such thing as aliens or monsters or vampires." And whereas Buffy, you know, the characters learn and they reference things that happened in the past, and the seasons had arcs. Yeah. For me, that all started with Buffy. That changed television.
It did. It's a landmark.
And
if not, was one of the first to do it.
It changed female characters.
First lesbian kiss on television, I think, was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Joss Whedon references that in Once More with Feeling. He says, "Well, this is basically porn, and there's no getting around it."
Yes. Yeah. So, I highly recommend go and watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you were a fan of the show, you know, you've got your favourites. Leave them in the comment section below, because we love to hear what other people think about Buffy too.
Yeah.
And I'll be back in the third part of the podcast with Ian, and we'll be answering your questions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back to part 3 of the podcast. Ian, welcome back to the podcast.
What up, everybody?
Ian, I just want to say that, this is podcast 17.
Yeah.
This is the first time in 17 months that it's just been you and me for a part of the podcast.
I know, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's pretty amazing. It's gone fast.
It takes a lot. I mean, we could talk, just the two of us, but...
Well, I realised that after I did, 17 out of the 24 hours... live stream that I did with you just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And also, I'd also like to take this point also, because this is the first time I've really just addressed the listeners. The listeners, our fans.
Oh, right,
really.
Yeah.
Since the live stream, and I've just got to say, that was it was great to hang out with all of you guys that came and joined the live stream at any point during the stream. You guys gave us so much material to work with. You guys kept it going for us, kept us awake.
Yeah.
Even though I snored.
It is always amazing to just do those things. And, you just get to interact with absolutely everybody from all around the world. We're talking to Alex, we're talking to Campbell, we're talking to Lizard. We've got people in Tiverton, we've got people in Canada. It's great just to be able to say, we've got an audience.
Yeah.
There's an audience. They like us, Gary. They really like us. Yeah,
it is cool. It is cool. And we really like all of you as well. So, I just wanted to say thank you again for everyone for tuning into the stream. And I'm pretty sure next April we will do another one.
Yeah.
It's turning into an annual thing.
We've got plans.
There'll be number 3. So, questions. That's what we're here for.
Yes, the Q&A.
And the first question comes from Birds Elope with the Sun.
Hey, Birds.
And he says, have you guys ever thought about doing commentary tracks? It could be a way for you to get around copyright for Universal movies. I want to hear your thoughts about the Jurassic Park sequels. Also, what would be your top 5 characters from the Alien franchise? So we did actually talk about commentary tracks during the stream.
Yeah.
And we pretty much said that we've been continuing to discuss doing commentary tracks since we did the Phantasm commentary tracks. And we did also decide quite recently on the series of films that we would like to do the commentary tracks for.
It's finding the time, like we always say. It's always that section of our lives where we go, right, we've got to sit down, we've got to watch this film, we've got to record it, then we've got to edit it, and then we've got to get back up. I've got holidays coming up soon. Once I juggle and balance and, sit down with Gary, we might watch the films that we've got planned.
True, yes, I'd be quite happy to do that.
We found out a new one had just recently come out of a certain series. I won't say what, but, see if you can guess.
I'm sure they're going to guess from that.
Top 5 characters
from the Alien franchise?
Ooh.
I've got mine.
I'll go first.
Okay, but I'm going to say excluding Ripley.
Yeah, excluding Ripley. Okay. Parker.
Nice.
Hicks.
Yeah.
Hudson. Vasquez. And I will go with... I want to say Morse, but I'm also thinking Jonah.
Jonah, yeah. So I've written down, I've got Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez, Bishop...
Nice.
I really like Bishop. He was
not the broken one from Alien 3.
I liked him too.
Okay.
I mean that was his last scene, and I love I love your new haircut and his final moments. Yeah, it's just not as harrowing as the funeral sequence itself when Hicks and Newt's dropped into the furnace. And then for me it was a tie, 5th place with Jonah and Tennessee.
You're counting Covenant.
And some sides in there now. It's in there now. It's an alien film. Tennessee is a great character.
We'll go with Tennessee. We'll go with Tennessee.
Next question's from Michael Hayes. And this Michael. Is a continuation of the previous question. He says, Robot Jocks or Escape from New York, or another film, Wing Commander, commentary track.
Robot Jocks?
Yeah. I'm not familiar with it.
Has it got a year? Have you got a year?
No. I'm pretty sure it was an early 80s cheap sci-fi
I haven't heard of it.
Movie.
And Escape from New York.
And Wing Commander. He wants commentary tracks for those. There's an interesting suggestion.
We'd have to review Escape from New York, but I'd definitely do a commentary for Wing Commander, along with the game.
Yeah. Next question is not really a question, but I thought I'd read it out anyway. Is from HD Baird.
Hey HD.
And he says, you can't lose the sofa. It's the same as mine. And, oh no, actually, upgrade. You deserve it. Now,
change is good. Change is good.
Change is mostly always good. Sometimes it is bad, not often, but it's always difficult to adjust to change. That's the thing. Now, I am a little bit apprehensive because actually, I am at this point, but the podcast will come out afterwards. But the next review that goes up is halfway the new set. It's kind of the video we recorded when we did the Twitch stream and the change of scenery video. Yeah,
by the time this podcast goes live, we would have done a couple of reviews with the new set. Yeah. And I'm like the audience at home. I'm not unsure about it. I like the old sofa and I like the old set as well. Back in the old flat, that was
the two sofas,
really good as well.
The beanbag, the shelf.
But we get all this new tech and we start messing around with these new ideas, and then people start saying all these new things. We got to try these things just to
see
how they work, and if they don't work, then we just carry on doing it.
Is if the comments are all really bad for the review that would have gone out by now, which is The Ghost in the Darkness. It wasn't we didn't have the backdrop in there at that point, as we do, which is the films on the shelf and the Spike doll being sat there where it is. But so by now they would have seen a video as well where that is upgraded. So maybe we'll keep evolving it. Yeah, so I thought I'd read HD Baird's comments out just because it's just to give a commentary on...
Sofa's still there.
Yeah.
And we still got it.
Next question is from Matthias.
Hey, Matthias.
Also not really a question.
Okay.
He also said, I called it. So excited for your full Covenant review, which of course is just this week gone up.
Yes.
I agree with DMC Campbell. I really liked those audio commentaries of the Phantasm movies, which you definitely should do more of, guys. So just reinforcing the commentaries. Yeah. No question this time, because I'll probably get to ask some during the 24-hour stream. Yeah. I just want to wish him good luck, and holy shit, I can never do that. Respect, bro. Instead of a question, I would like to thank you guys for all the awesome content you have made for us these last couple of years. I'm a huge fan of the channel, and just keep doing what you're doing because I enjoy watching and listening to you guys. Cheers, Matthias. It's always great to hear that.
Love praise. Love praise. Love praise.
Especially considering we've had some interesting trolly comments over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, more so than we're usually accustomed to.
But people are getting more in touch with their actual critical side towards the films and our views.
Yes,
it's not just personal attacks.
Then
with those we just kind of
let it go. Let the position
go.
Yeah,
but when you've got a serious attack, like, for fuck's sake, Ian, why did you hate Covenant so much? It's like, because just like you, why you loved it so much.
It's the personal attacks. Yeah, that's the ones really. Yeah, but yeah.
Not stop with the hair as well. Stop with the hair.
Not even going to touch that. Next question. First question. Matt Midgley.
Hey, Matt.
Fantastic as always. And my question for the podcast is if the key to a sequel is expanding the original universe.
Yeah.
When did James Cameron do it better? Aliens or Terminator 2?
I was going to go with Piranha 2: The Spawning. I mean, flying piranhas is pretty expanding the universe.
Yeah. Bigger and better.
See, the question is, which one did he expand more, Aliens or Terminator 2, visually? We in Aliens, we just kind of, we're a little bit on Earth, and then we're straight back to the alien planet. Terminator 2, we get that whole battle sequence
with Skynet.
We
get the fact that they have the T-1000.
Yeah. The overdevelopment of technology with the chip.
Yeah. The whole processing unit, the learning.
Yeah.
With Aliens, we got a little bit more of LV-426. We got the creature evolved slightly. We also get the Queen, which is like the T-1000, essentially for something new.
We didn't,
But it also, for me, because of the whole idea of the Queen, that really, really helped shape and evolve the Alien universe.
I suppose if
more so than what happened with the Terminator franchise. So for me, I'm going to say Aliens is more of an expanded universe.
I'd go with Aliens as well. Yeah. And a bit Terminator 2. Just a bit.
Which film do you think is the better? Which is your favourite?
I'd go with Aliens.
You'd go with I would go with Aliens as well over T2.
Just
as much as great as T2 is.
That dropship sequence, I could just start the film from there.
Yeah.
With Terminator 2, I've kind of got to go with everything to understand, what part they're at.
Next question's from Jack Hawkins.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, boys. Funky Lizard here from the 24-hour stream.
Funky Lizard.
Apologies for not being able to watch throughout its entirety, but my question for you this week, are there currently any British comedies you are watching and enjoying that you can recommend? I feel good British comedies are a dying breed. P.S. Are you still snoring, Gary? Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are. I saw this question and I thought we've kind of reverted from the slapstick comedy, British comedy, to now situational, relatable comedy with like My Family and Not Going Out, and
I don't watch any of these. I
that's it. I just see them on the TV. Like, okay, yeah, that looks funny.
I don't watch TV anymore.
We go back to Red Dwarf every now and again.
Red Dwarf is my only answer because Red Dwarf is still going. I mean, there's talks of the next filming season. Season.
Red Dwarf. How long can it go for?
It can keep going indefinitely, really, until one of them unfortunately dies.
Okay, thanks
so
for
long
that,
as
Gary.
they're still writing it, I'm sure they'll still all keep doing it.
So we'll go with Red Dwarf then.
Red Dwarf, yeah. There's not really isn't much else. It is actually a dying breed, and as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It is quite sad.
Wow, depressing.
Yeah. Next question is from David. Hey, David.
Hey, David.
After the live stream, does Ian feel shame about his attempts at Tomb Raider 2?
No. In the situation that I was in, working with the technology that I had, that was the best I could do, and I'd like to see anybody else try and play Tomb Raider 2 without a memory card all the way through.
And 17 hours of no sleeping at
and
that
17
point.
Yes, at least 17 hours of no sleep at that point. And two other games underneath your belt.
Yeah. Dave also says, plus it's the 30th birthday of My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, I love that film.
And Grave of the Fireflies. What are your thoughts on them?
I love both of them. I love Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli's amazing.
It's been mentioned that obviously we've never reviewed a Studio Ghibli film, and I think I have mentioned it in previous videos, probably on the early Gaming Friday videos or Let's Play videos where we've talked about it there, and it's the fact that of all the companies on YouTube which filter and block content, there's
a lot.
There's, the WWE are particularly brutal. Konami's one of them. Fox and Universal has been our nightmare. Studio Ghibli is another one of them, where they will block videos immediately, the content. They've blocked content before which just had still images from a Studio Ghibli film. So,
and it's kind of understandable, but then at the same time it makes it incredibly difficult when somebody says, hey, you should watch this incredibly amazing film, and we're like, yes, but their country won't. Like, I mean, I don't know if we've managed to get it back up by this point, but Death Watch.
Yes, yeah.
Death Watch went down and it said, oh, it's blocked in some countries. So I'm like, oh, probably 4, maybe 5 countries.
It's like 50 countries.
Practically the whole world. We're not allowed to show Death Watch. And I'm like, Death Watch? Really?
Yeah.
How old is it now? Like fucking
20 odd years.
20 odd years old and not really memorable.
No.
But yeah, Studio Ghibli.
Stupid YouTube system. Would
love to, along with a lot of their animated stuff, manga and anime movies. Akira be a great one.
Yes, yeah. I think Akira we could probably do.
See, I'd love to do.
It's just Studio Ghibli. Spirited Away. I love that film. Yeah, so beautiful.
Such a beautiful movie. Is it Elboba? The witch.
Yeah.
Ubaba.
Yeah. So next question is from Tom W.G. Sexton.
Hey Tom.
Have either of you watched A Quiet Place yet? If so, what did you think? And if not, then why the hell not?
By the time this goes out, I have wikied it.
Right.
And I've got it. Have you haven't seen it yet?
I have kind of been... I've not seen anything in the cinema this last month that I've wanted to watch. My watch list includes Quiet Place, Truth or Dare, Ready Player One, Rampage, The Isle of Dogs. I'm pretty sure there was, I think it was Anderson. Today or tomorrow. No, there's a film about a disembodied spirit that I really want to watch as well. So there's a ton of stuff that I've been meaning to watch and intended to watch, to discuss in the podcast. And I decided to take a couple of Buffy days instead and just binged watch a lot of Buffy. So I've kind of, my time to go to the cinema, I kind of skipped out on. So I haven't seen A Quiet Place yet, but I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, even though I only wikied it, obviously I kind of imagined how it would go, and just the thought that it's all quiet.
Yeah.
Some of the situations that you read and you kind of imagine in your head.
You need to have a respectful audience in the theatre when watching this film.
That's it. I imagine that this film would be absolutely terrifying because every other sound would just make you jump because you've been sat there for at least 30, 45 minutes in complete silence.
Yeah. So, it's on the watch list. I will hopefully catch it before it comes out of theatres. Before
get it on DVD.
Infinity War reigns supreme.
Yeah.
And I definitely predict that Infinity War is going to be the highest grossing movie of all time. It's going to destroy Avatar's records.
Yeah. Thanos is just going to smash the world.
I'm working the midnight shift. Help me!
Yeah, well, at least you get to see some bits.
Yes.
At least you'll be able to catch what happens at the end.
Yes.
5 minutes when you're cleaned up after everybody.
Next question is from Sam Varney.
Hey, Sam.
Have you guys seen Stranger Things yet? And if not, why not? It really is as good as people say, and some more.
I've
talked about Stranger Things in previous podcasts, and I really loved season 1. I had a lot of issues with season 2. A lot of it felt a bit rushed and a little bit not thought out clearly.
Okay.
But I still really like the characters, the mood, the atmosphere, the nostalgia. Still, I can't wait. I can't wait for season 3. I'm excited for season 3. And in season 3 news, they have just signed Jake Busey for season 3. So another good reason to come back for season 3.
See, it's on my to watch list, but it's down there on my to watch list because I've got my go-to programs.
Yeah.
Mainly WWE Network, but I've been watching a lot of Monkey recently.
Again, yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Monkey while I've been editing, and Hawaii 5-0.
Oh,
I'm going to chug this in now. Oh, Hawaii 5-0. I caught up with my first episode of season 8, and it was really amazing because they just wrote the other two characters out, Gracie Park and the guy who plays Chin. I can't remember his name at the moment, but they have been signed for season 9. So get ready for more Hawaii 5-0.
How does Hawaii 5-0 get picked up and Ash vs Evil Dead gets cancelled?
I know, it's terrifying. Maybe Bruce Campbell can get into Hawaii 5-0. He can bring his Burn Notice character back. So there you go. Drop some Burn Notice there, Bruce.
Man, you're nightmares. No.
I'd sell a liver to get Bruce Campbell on this show.
Oh, hell yeah.
Kickstart.
Ian will donate a liver. Get Bruce Campbell on the show.
Yeah.
The next question's from George Lee.
Hey, George.
Hi, guys. Awesome stream. My questions are, what film or films do you think are overrated?
Alien Covenant. Hellraiser Judgment.
For me, I'm going to say Napoleon Dynamite. It's overrated. The Hurt Locker, I thought was overrated.
Yeah, Hurt Locker's not bad.
Gladiator, I thought was overrated.
Blade Runner.
What?
Yeah, man.
Blade Runner's not overrated.
Blade Runner is totally overrated. The whole dream sequence and the fucking origami
I am
shit.
not biting.
You don't have to buy it. I'm saying my shit. You said what's the most overrated film. I love Blade Runner. I love sitting down and watching Blade Runner. And I love the whole detective noir, futuristic idea behind Blade Runner. But when you start questioning the questions behind it, it just leads to answers you don't want to know. Like, is Deckard a replicant or human? Human.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just go
that's just like your opinion. Okay, so Ian, best kung fu movies of the 80s.
Best kung fu, the 80s. I mean, most of that would be the Jackie Chan. I'm going to go with China O'Brien.
What?
I'd never seen a China O'Brien movie.
And so you're going to recommend it as the greatest?
She just looks really badass. I mean, have you ever seen the trailers? It's like, Cynthia Rothrock is China O'Brien. And you're just like, fucking, she's going to kick some ass.
I used to have the VHS.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have seen it.
You know, fucking any Jean-Claude Van Damme. Well, no, that's not kung fu. It's a toss-up between Jackie Chan and Cynthia Rothrock.
Yeah. I'm going to chuck Big Trouble in Little China in there.
Yeah, action kung fu movie.
Yeah. And finally, what was the best teen sex comedy of the 80s? Thanks for the awesome content. I think I literally went to Porky's immediately.
Yeah.
You mentioned Weird Science earlier.
Yeah, late 80s. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
I mean, those are definitely going to be the best.
Fantasies.
Yeah.
I did think about Weekend at Bernie's, but I don't know if that's a sex comedy or just a...
Kind of, yeah.
I haven't seen it in ages.
Yeah. I'd allow it.
Barry's Not Included was a bit of a sex comedy.
What?
Well, the version I watched anyway.
What version did you watch? I don't want to know. Next question's from Andrea Bezery. I think I'm saying it right. Okay, guys, a question for you all. What is the dumbest movie you have ever seen?
Hellraiser Judgment.
Yeah, he was dumb. Yeah.
Taken 2 because it was...
I'm just going to say any Adam Sandler movie. Really? Oh, pretty damn stupid.
Out, burning it.
Dumb.
Yeah. What is your worst... I mean, really, like, scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler. Yeah, probably Jack and Jill, which I couldn't even watch. I couldn't even watch it all. There was just... I'm watching Al Pacino just destroy any semblance of...
I tried to watch Big Daddy again, and I'm just like,
God.
This is not funny. I was trying to get behind it, and same as the grown-up movies. Adam Sandler just walks into the movie. He's just like, I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, I'm a vet. Adam Sandler is
a stapler.
Office Space 2.
Oh, God. Next question's from Patrick Klotz.
Hey, Patrick.
Are you guys in favour of a Babylon 5 reboot or don't touch the classic? Now,
subject.
Obviously, we just discussed this in the previous part where we were talking about a Buffy reboot. Where Fox, just before or even after the Disney buyout, was looking at relaunching Buffy as either another movie or another TV series for another generation.
Right.
And it's just a case of, they said, no Joss, no show.
Yeah.
But it's, it's like, how is it worth reimagining and redoing things? Because I immediately will bring up Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
A lot of people hated it. A lot of people boycotted it because of the fandom for what came before it, the original Battlestar Galactica. It can work. It can work if it's handled with the respect and love and attention, and they have a well thought out story.
Always.
But if it's a shameful cash in of Babylon 5, then that's
the
disastrous.
The core of Babylon 5 was the relationships in the station, but then I'm pretty sure I stopped watching after season 1. 2.
Oh, wow.
Trying to catch that show was really difficult over here. It was late fucking Channel 4 nights on Fridays.
Yeah.
And some of the episodes, they were so political.
Yeah.
It dragged out conversations about what they were doing. By the end of the episode, everything was fine and nobody died.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I need some action. So then they started bringing out all those different films, which kind of expanded the universe, but I missed Babylon 5.
Yeah.
I wanted to be back there, not with the fleet in the middle of the warp storm or whatever it was, because they basically did what they did on the station. They stood around talking about what they were going to do next.
Yeah.
So if you're going to reboot it, kind of keep it to the same, I suppose what I'm saying. Keep it on the station for a bit, then expand the universe slow. Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Just reduce Deep Space Nine.
Maybe.
Have it, yeah.
I think there's space for intelligent sci-fi, political sci-fi that has, space battles.
Yeah, but have it control. Have the station have to be in control of something, like a specific gateway or a beacon.
Yeah.
Right, just like in Deep Space Nine.
I have to say, I didn't watch much of Babylon 5 either. I found it difficult to jump into for syndicated television, trying to catch up with a show that's already been airing and not having the internet to be able to catch up or easily buy it.
The first season was really
tough
good,
to get into.
But it was a bit deep. But you have the station control something, and then expand the season after expand the universe after like season 2.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, if it's done right, it could work.
It could work.
Alexander Kirik says, "Hey boys."
Hey Alexander.
Question: do you consider to do some comparison reviews of multiple films based on the same source material? For example, Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, The Last Man on Earth, The Omega Man, I Am Legend, I Am Omega. Or John Wyndham's Day of the Triffids, 1963, 1981, 2009. Could be a special for the Halloween, maybe. I mean, you've also got Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes,
and,
we started. We've partially done it with The Thing. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do the classic movie first.
Yeah.
Then move up to present day.
Yeah.
But problem we have with that is much like when we do the Halloween specials. I'll use Hellraiser as an example. You have the seemingly same storyline played out, so you already know by the second movie what's going to happen. So you're just kind of looking for something.
You go through the same motions, but you have different characters and see if it plays out differently or unexpectedly. Or...
Yeah. So with the Omega Man, I Am Legend.
Yeah.
I would only actually watch the Omega Man with Charlton Heston because I enjoy that more as a nostalgic trip,
right?
Than say the Will Smith version. I like the Will Smith version.
Yeah.
But it's not great.
No.
Is it? And I'm not even going to fucking touch the Mark Damascus version.
That was so hard to watch.
That is.
Didn't we watch part of that on Fast Forward?
We had to.
We couldn't take any more of it.
There was nothing happening for like fucking half
for the whole film. It felt like a 5-hour film.
I remember we fast forwarded and there's like lots of explosions.
Like, how did that happen?
You watch Mark Damascus like run out a door and you're like, where did that door? Where was that door?
We watched that on the strength of Brotherhood of the Wolf, I think. Because of the actor.
I still haven't seen that actually.
Really?
No, he was in City of Angels. No, was it the Crow?
One of the Crow films. Yeah. Oh my god.
He was in Hawaii Five-0 actually.
Oh my
Mark
god.
Damascus, actually, I remember that.
That's where you end up. So next question is from Craig Hall.
Hey Craig.
All right, chaps, how you all doing?
Tired.
Excellent podcast again last month. You lads seem to know what you're doing. Right.
Do we?
I hope so.
Oh, good.
We're still winging it, I think.
Yeah.
Question. By some twist of fate, you have the opportunity, oh dear,
right,
to trade the life of a terrible actor or actress in order to resurrect.
Yeah, I got mine.
A deceased actor or actress. Which do you choose? Don't be afraid to use the words Adam and Sandler. Try not to use the words Kevin and Spacey. However, Ian, some of us might actually play that drinking game and rather not end up in hospital. So for me, you already said it. I mean, Adam Sandler was, before I even read it, Adam Sandler just popped to mind. It's like, if I've got to kill somebody, then and no one's really going to miss Adam Sandler, are they? I bring back Rick Mail.
Nice. That's a good.
It's a pretty brutal question, but
I thought Kevin Spacey, but then,
I like having Adam Sandler around to hate.
Yeah, see, that's the same thing with Kevin Spacey. I was like, the films are still okay. I couldn't imagine who would be in like 7 if it wasn't Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, who would you put in there?
Yeah, or Jim Carrey in 7.
Yeah,
that'd be creepy. But I would go with, and I'm not being political. I would go with Donald Trump. He has actually starred in films, and so that
which
technically he was in Home Alone 2,
Home Alone 2.
And the Sandlot kids. He mainly just plays that in the background billionaire. They pay him to just kind of stand there. But they're terrible parts. Just terrible. So I would get rid of him, and the first person I thought of was Anton Yelchin.
Really?
Because,
I was thinking about him the other day, actually. I was in work, and I think we were talking about Terminator, and people were trashing on Salvation.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, at least it did have one good thing in it, and that was Anton Yelchin's performance of Kyle Reese. He was actually quite believable. I quite liked him.
See, another one I thought of was Sharon Tate. She's from the Fearless Vampire Killers.
Yeah.
I started thinking of actors who had just gone too soon.
Right.
But not like I'm going to sound harsh now, but not like River Phoenix.
Right.
I mean, he did a lot of drugs.
Well, yeah.
So. No, that's it. Yeah.
You done yet? Yeah. Sorry. Next question is from Will Schwarting.
Hey, Will.
If you could only have one gaming console, past or present, and 3 games for eternity,
right,
what would they be?
Oh,
He also says follow-up. They are currently working...
Follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, it was just follow-up. I'm just literally reading as I've typed.
Okay.
Or as I've copied and pasted, actually. So they are currently working on a First Blood reboot. Who would you cast for John Rambo? Carl Urban and Kevin Spacey's excluded. Keep kicking ass, boys. For me, I would probably go with...
Melissa McCarthy.
Yes, if I could only have one gaming console, Melissa McCarthy. What 3 games would I play with Melissa McCarthy?
I'm getting like an existence image in my head now. Like all these... Play me, Gary, play me! Charles, burn it! Burn it!
If I was to recast Rambo, I would maybe... I don't know. It's a tough one. I was like, there's no one... I know, my first thought actually was to Chris Evans, after post Captain America, kill him off in Avengers Infinity War Part 2.
Yeah.
And then he can play the ex-war veteran who just wants to get away from it all.
Jason Statham.
Jason Statham as Rambo? I just couldn't take it. I mean, I'm excited to watch Jason Statham punch Meg this summer. I can't wait for that.
That looks fucking sweet.
That looks so stupid. I can't wait.
The console. I've got so many favorite consoles. I love everything.
I would like to take my my Xbox 360 and take Red Dead Redemption, but I don't know what else I would put with my 360.
Because that would be all you play.
Because that would be all I play.
Oh, I know yours.
Yeah.
Chrome Hounds, yeah. So long as I had people to play it with. Yeah,
you can't really play that game on your own.
No.
I also need teammates as well with that game. But yeah.
I'm thinking my PSP.
And maybe the first Dead Rising game.
Oh, that game was so fucking stupid.
That was still the best one.
You like 2 joypads over that game.
Yeah, I know,
but it made me fight the last boss.
It was the best one. It was still the best one.
I remember just jumping up and down.
Of all the Dead Rising games, I would pick up and play the first one again.
Didn't we try to do that? Was there like a remake? And then we realised that the rolling function was still shit.
Yes, yeah. But if not, I would take a PlayStation 2 with Final Fantasy 7, Resident Evil 2, and the Alien trilogy.
A PlayStation 2 with 3 PlayStation 1 games.
Well, it's because it played better on the PS2, and I don't know if you can get them on the PS3 or 4.
Yeah,
because of PlayStation Store and stuff.
I'd go N64 with a copy of Paper Mario.
Nice. Was Conkers on 64?
Yeah, but I wouldn't go Conkers. I'd go WWF No Mercy.
Nice, yes, yeah.
And
back when there was blood in the wrestling games.
Either a copy of, I'm thinking GoldenEye. No, Duke Nukem Zero Hour.
Duke Nukem Zero Hour. Nice.
Duke Nukem 0 Hour. Yeah.
Cool. Next question's from Andrew Lee Fenton.
Hey, Andrew.
Hi, guys. Fantasy casting time.
Okay.
Ian and Gary are cast in any movie. One is the main protagonist and the other is the antagonist. Which movie and who is who in that movie?
Oh, I've got this.
Right. Okay. 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 At first, my first response was, is this we put ourselves in an existing film as the hero and bad guy, or do we make our entire film?
Well, my film's a complete make-up film, so why don't you go with a present-day film?
Or one that exists before.
Yeah.
That I would just put you and me in.
Yeah.
I would just put you and me in as Lebowski and Walter.
I was just thinking
of the Big Lebowski.
I was thinking
or I would put us in Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
See, but of course, that's not hero villain type.
Yeah.
Maybe
what would be the antagonist? Well, Walter is a bit of an antagonist.
True. Yeah, but he's not the antagonist.
No. Yeah.
No.
Well, so which one of us would be the bad guy?
In what film?
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I struggle to find one. So, but I know you were formulating an idea.
Yeah. I had an idea. Right. Okay. So imagine Gary. He's working a dead end job. He's got a relationship. World is grey, and then all of a sudden, Ian appears, his imaginary friend.
Say what the fuck?
And the whole movie, the whole of Gary's normal life is just filmed in all grey. But then when Ian appears, he has Gary imagine his life in film and it's all blazing colour. Like Scott Pilgrim.
I'm going to call it Drop Deadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would I be? Yeah,
and you could then be the villain. Yeah, you could be the antagonist.
Yeah, I'd be the villain. Well, I was seeing myself more of a hero.
You're like a comedy villain.
Turn your life around. Adam Sandler comes in.
Yeah, but for an evil purpose. Yeah, because you keep bringing in Adam Sandler.
You have to defeat Adam Sandler. He's like your nemesis.
Next question is from Mike Collins.
Hey, Mike.
You've got a film festival to book. Say 6 films, starting at a family-friendly animation and getting progressively more adult as the film festival goes on.
Okay.
What films would you pick, and why?
Sword in the Stone as my first.
And why?
Well, it's a kids' animation Disney movie.
It is a classic. I love Sword in the Stone. I need to revisit it again.
It'd settle everybody down, get them all happy. Then Disney's The Black Hole.
Nice, yeah.
It's a bit of a dark, sci-fi. Going from midday, probably. Kids are going to still be up. So you want to go. No, I'm thinking Terminator now. No, it's too violent. No, I can't think of Event Horizon. No,
too soon.
No,
near the midpoint.
It's Star Wars. Maybe Empire.
Yeah.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Okay, yeah.
Friday is number 5. And then The Thing is number 6.
Cool. For me, I've gone with Land Before Time.
Nice.
I think, you said you wanted animation and other than Sword in the Stone or Jungle Book, I was just in a dinosaur-y kind of mood.
Okay.
And so Land Before Time. Yeah. There's kind of also going to be a little bit of a theme now with that being the start of it.
Yeah.
Mixing with sci-fi as number 2 will be Star Wars Episode 4.
Nice.
Because I think that's the classic. That's the one that started Star Wars. It's as it is today, where it's come from. That's where it all began. Number 3 is going to be Jurassic Park. Because I'm in a dinosaur mood.
Yeah.
Then it's going to get dark, and they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
Okay.
Aliens.
So this is number 4.
Number 4. Yeah.
So about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, kids are still up.
Well, they may be. I watched
parents,
Aliens at a young age, so it's baptism time.
Yeah. Baptism by fire.
By acid. Number 5, Blade Runner.
Nice.
Keeping the sci-fi feel. And then we'll go, finally, we'll wrap up the party with Serenity.
Ooh.
And, Wash has got dinosaurs on his dashboard.
End of night on Wash's death, man. That's critical.
It's still with Serenity, so, it's still going to have the feel-goods by the end. Serenity flying off afterwards.
People going home wiping a tear away.
With the memory. But you're still going to feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, next question's from Jeremy Eccleton.
Hey, Jeremy.
Favourite movie of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and noughties. So this I found almost impossible for some decades because there are truly some monumental films in all of those eras. So it was tough, but I'm going to give you mine. From the 60s, if I'm going to choose a favourite, it's going to be Planet of the Apes.
Wow. Classic.
I've watched that film countless times. The entire series countless times.
Yeah.
From the 70s, this one was tough. Like, if I was going to choose a favourite, it's going to be... I had to go with a tie. I really couldn't pick a favourite in the end.
Yeah.
Alien and Rocky.
Oh.
So, they're just phenomenal films. Both of them.
Late 70s,
yeah. The 80s, The Thing.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be your choice as well.
Yeah, that's in there.
For the 90s, it's The Big Lebowski.
Nice.
For the noughties, it's again a real tie between The Dark Knight and District 9.
Ooh.
They're just such great films in their own respects and regards. But I've overlooked so many films there.
So many.
It was painful to narrow it down to some of those choices.
See, I'm just going to go with the flashes of the ones that come in my head of those times before I forget them.
Sure.
So for the 60s, it would have to be Psycho.
Yes, yeah.
Just
standout horror film.
I'm going to cheat. I love Psycho because it gives me Psycho 2.
Okay.
And I really love Psycho 2. So Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho really sets that movie. 70s. Oh, see, you said Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
I do like some of those classics. I'm sticking with Omega Man. I'm thinking that's 70s.
I think so.
70s sci-fi like Soylent Green and fucking Logan's Run.
Yeah,
Buck Rogers in 25th Century.
Yeah.
The Fantastic Voyage.
Yes.
Andromeda. Is it Andromeda 1? No. Capricorn 1?
Yeah.
No, that's the moon landing one. I'm thinking about the virus that comes from space and turns people to powder. Oh. The Andromeda Project.
Yeah.
Is it Project? Somebody's going to tell me. 80s, it's got to be John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, right.
90s, shit, probably Clerks. That's the first thing I'm thinking of in my head at that point. There's a lot in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even think at the moment in my head in the 90s. Then the noughties, The Dark Knight.
Dark
Knight's just fucking a brutal, amazing film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I put District 9 up there because when I walked out of the cinema, I was just like, that's a 10 out of 10. I've never walked out of a cinema and gone 10 out of 10 before.
Beautiful.
Like, oh my God, I'm going to go watch it again now.
Yeah, and you could just remove all those prawns and stick in xenomorphs and it would look amazing. Amazing.
Oh,
yeah.
What could have been.
Need a tissue.
And the last question for the podcast is from Ash Whittingham.
Hey, Ash.
What is the most underrated movie this decade? Now, there's not been too many. I mean, I would say like all of the Transformer movies are fucking overrated. Like, people are still paying lots of money to go and see these films.
He says underrated, though.
Underrated. Oh, sorry.
He's on a Transformers rant.
Yeah,
He's on a Transformers
sorry,
rant.
I'll pull it back. I'll pull it back.
They are overrated though, and they do shadow over some fucking class movies.
Yes, yeah. I'm gonna say Pandorum, which came out 2009.
Yeah.
So it's not this decade, but it's been in the last 10 years still. I thought that was really great. It was the first sort of sci-fi horror film since Event Horizon that pushed those buttons.
Yeah.
I quite liked some of the performances. I thought there was a character twist that I didn't like, but I still really enjoyed the pace of the film, the mood of the film.
Yeah, the look of it was really, really good. I remember seeing it the first time, and once you've seen it, you know the plot, but I like going back to see it because the claustrophobic view of the shit.
It has a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. Ooh. So, it's... that is, I would say, is definitely underrated by the most part.
Ang Lee's the Hulk.
Ang Lee's the Hulk underrated? Yeah, I'm not a fan of that film.
I like Hulk movies, and it was the first one to, give us this big, massive behemoth running around smashing shit up. I know he changed a few things, but I like the look of it as well, where it goes.
I like watching him smash tanks.
Yes, yes. The whole storyline doesn't really make sense, but that whole emotional bit at the end where he's just like screaming at his dad to take all that rage, and Nick Nolte. You haven't seen Nick Nolte in ages. I reckon he still looks the same.
Probably. I'm also gonna say In the Heart of the Sea.
Ooh.
Which, looking at it, has a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I've watched that film twice when it came out. Big fan of Moby Dick.
Yes.
I love the original black and white version of Moby Dick, and so watching another adaptation of it, I was a bit apprehensive going into it, but I was blown away by the effects, the cinematography, the mood, the action sequences, the characters, the development of it, and I would definitely I would easily watch it again as well.
Yeah.
So I would say it's underrated. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into why it was so critically panned, or maybe it just didn't. People want to go and see it.
People didn't want to go see a movie about people on a boat unless it's got fucking Johnny Depp on the front.
But it's got Moby Dick, the most famous killer whale.
Yeah, but people aren't into really realistic fucking Moby whale
because it didn't have Jason Statham punching the whale.
Yeah, that's well. I mean, who was it? It wasn't Channing Tatum. It was fucking Thor, wasn't it?
Chris? Forgotten Thor's name now.
Yeah, it was Thor.
Yeah, it was Thor.
He didn't have a hammer, The people were like, "Oh, is he not Thor?" No. Oh, okay. What's he doing? Fighting a whale.
Pass.
Cabin Fever is underrated as well.
Well, Well, on that horrific note, we're going to bring the 17th podcast to a close.
Yes.
But we'll be back next month with another podcast, of course. New film reviews on Thursdays, gaming Fridays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Really hope you enjoyed the conversation on Buffy. Let us know your favourite episodes in the comment section below, and we'll see you all next time.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Grr. Arg.
Oh, I need a hug.